He was once the strongest sword master in the kingdom. After his death, he expected a peaceful afterlife. Instead, he wakes up as a young prince years in the future. Sounds great, until he realizes his former disciples are now legendary heroes, powerful nobles, and some of the most influential people in the world. The last thing he wants is for them to discover that their revered master has been reincarnated as a child. Unfortunately for him, the more trouble he gets into, the harder it becomes to hide who he really is. A boy sat at a dinner table, struggling to cut a thick piece of meat. The knife scraped uselessly against it. He thought about how strange it was. Nobles ate cuts this dense? In his past life, he had run across battlefields and earned the title of state sword master. Back then, slicing through something like this would have been nothing. Someone called out the name Brise. The boy's eyes sharpened. That life had been brutal, but he didn't mind it. Now he was reborn as a child. His older brothers, Prince Leonard and Prince Alan, sat nearby, trading jabs. Alan pointed out that at least he wasn't eating with his hands anymore. Leonard mocked him like a wild dog. The boy threatened to punch them both. Their father quietly asked if everyone was okay. Their father told Elemi it wasn't that bad, then brought up Sword Master Brise. Apparently he used to eat so aggressively he'd cut through the plate. The man next to him panicked and tried to stop the story. Elemi played dumb and said it was nothing, grinning to himself. He told his father nothing was wrong. Elemi recognized the king. In his past life, that freshly crowned young ruler was someone he'd fought under. Now that same man was his father, King Kilpus Oldingham. Alan snapped at Leonard, and Leonard fired back. The king cut in and reminded Alan that speaking poorly of a deceased hero was disrespectful. Elemi watched quietly, unimpressed. Royalty squabbling like this felt beneath what he remembered. Queen Alina stepped in and told everyone to eat together in peace. The brothers backed down. The king agreed that family should support each other. Elemi apologized alongside them. She was kind. Even his brothers fell in line around her. But in this life, Elemi found her the most exhausting person to deal with. Elemi asked his mother if he could learn to use a sword. She immediately shut it down. Royals had no need for swords, and if he got hurt she'd fall apart. She grabbed him in a panic, squeezing him tight. Elemi endured it, silently noting that her love was genuine, and genuinely suffocating. Elemi pushed hard and eventually got a private fencing instructor. His body still carried the memory of the battlefield, but a child's frame couldn't match his past strength. The instructor called him a genius. The man ended up knocked flat on the ground, bewildered. Elemi held the sword and wondered if his mother had something to do with the ridiculously easy level of the sessions. What Elemi really wanted was to train properly with a sword. But stuck in the palace with no real outlet, he felt like a bird in a cage. His mother fussed over him and called him adorable. He stared at her flatly. His mother left, and as soon as she was gone, Elemi felt relief wash over him. Then his brother Leonard appeared and called him a rat. He said if Elemi wanted to use a sword so badly, he should hide his identity and enroll in the Knight Academy, a boarding school for aspiring knights. Elemi's eyes went wide. Leonard explained it was the Knight Academy, founded by their father that very year. Sword training was a core part of the curriculum. Alan piled on, saying Elemi could swing a sword like a barbarian and they wouldn't have to look at him anymore. Though he doubted Elemi could even handle one given the dinner table situation. Elemi agreed immediately and thanked his brother. Both brothers stared at him, caught off guard. Elemi grinned. Going to the academy meant he wouldn't have to deal with his brothers' faces anymore, and he wouldn't have to keep pretending to be nice. His brothers stood there, confused. Elemi was already done with the conversation. Their mother found out and said absolutely not. The Knight Academy ran from elementary through high school. Enrolling meant Elemi wouldn't come home for nearly 10 years. She kept refusing even when Elemi promised to return on vacations. That night, the king summoned Elemi and told him directly to go to the Knight Academy. The king explained he didn't want Elemi ending up like his brothers. The palace had isolated them both. He told Elemi to go out, learn, and train in the real world, even if keeping his identity hidden would be hard. He also brought up Sword Master Brise, mocked in his time as unschooled and wild, but the man who had saved the country anyway. He told Elemi to become someone like that. Elemi listened carefully. Elemi thought to himself, Sword Master Brise was who he had been in his past life. The king stood right in front of him without knowing. Even the king, who had built friendships across social class, couldn't tell. Kilpus continued, saying Brise had pushed swordsmanship forward on his own, and that was why the country survived. It was better, the king decided, if Elemi didn't know who Brise really was. The king said he wanted everyone in the country to live freely like that. He was also having statues of Brise mass-produced across the kingdom. Elemi told him to stop putting copies of his face everywhere. The king told him not to worry, and said he'd handle breaking the news to their mother himself. Elemi thanked his father. Spring had come to the capital, Galliant. His mother made him promise to come back the moment things got hard. She also pushed for a bodyguard. Elemi turned it down. Revealing his identity would make him a target. He headed to the academic city of Rein and stood before the Royal Knight Academy. The entrance was crowded with applicants of all ages, classes, and backgrounds. The school ran elementary through high school, so the mix was wide. First came the written exam. Elemi finished it quickly without hesitation. Then he tried to withdraw. An examiner asked if he'd already given up. Elemi handed back his paper. It was perfect. The examiner stared. Elemi walked off, uninterested in the reaction. The examiner muttered that his job was to weed out kids who didn't take things seriously. The examiner was quietly irritated. Outside, a tall instructor addressed the crowd of applicants and explained that the practical exam was simple. Only those who could move well would pass. He told them to come at him one by one. Elemi spotted someone nearby who seemed to be a judge. He wondered about her. The judge, a girl with glasses, turned and looked directly at Elemi. Her gaze was sharp and focused. Elemi noticed and went still. The other applicants reacted around them, but the moment stayed locked between those two. Elemi wondered if she had recognized him as royalty. He couldn't figure out why she kept staring. Then it hit him. She reminded him of someone. He pushed the thought aside for now, but it stayed with him. The instructor called Elemi next. The examiner beside him recognized him as the boy who had left the written exam early and noted his attitude had changed. Someone confirmed his number. Applicant 017, Elemi Noi, rumored to be from a baron's family. Elemi noticed the instructor was clearly trying to look impressive in front of the female judge and found it obvious. The instructor said he'd never heard of the Noi family. He figured they might be minor lords from a border region, since he knew most nobles in the capital. He told Elemi to come at him freely. Elemi read the killing intent clearly. The man wanted to humiliate him in front of everyone. The instructor introduced himself as Lawrence Givry of the primary department, from a well-known capital family, and made a point of his noble fencing background. He told Elemi not to bother preparing and said beating him was impossible. Elemi said he understood, picked up the practice sword, found it too light, and said he wouldn't hold back either. Lawrence taunted him, asking if knowing he was a proper knight made Elemi nervous, offering a small advantage, suggesting Elemi go home before getting hurt. Elemi didn't react to any of it. He thought to himself that this wasn't a game. The man's bloodlust was real and wouldn't be satisfied with a polite exchange. Lawrence noted Elemi's stance was unusual, definitely not noble fencing, maybe something rural. He told Elemi to show what he could do, promising to teach him proper fencing if he passed. Elemi stayed focused and said nothing. Lawrence called him an idiot. Lawrence repeated the insult. Elemi heard it clearly and his expression sharpened. He told himself he had already left the palace, left the capital. There was no need to keep pretending. He decided to play a little. Lawrence moved to strike. Before he could react, Elemi was already behind him. Lawrence froze, caught completely off guard. Elemi struck. The impact sent Lawrence flying and crashing hard onto the ground. The judge watching nearby went still. The other applicants stared in silence. Elemi stood with the sword and thought it was way easier than cutting the dinner table meat. The judge watched him carefully, her expression tightening. She had seen that sword style somewhere before. Brise, the sword master who tore through the battlefield and was feared by everyone around him, now reborn as Prince Elemi, carrying the memories of his past life. During the practical exam, he had beaten the arrogant instructor. He had hidden his identity and taken the entrance exam for the primary section of the Royal Cavalry Academy. A senior examiner stepped in and told Elemi that sword strength alone didn't make a knight, and that he had gone too far. His written and practical scores were fine, but he lacked the spirit of a knight. Elemi tried to object. The verdict came down. Admission to the primary section was denied. Back at the inn, Elemi sat alone and admitted he had done it again. He had used too much force without thinking. He found out he had broken 5 of Lawrence's ribs, not the 2 or 3 he expected. He also couldn't believe how weak knights had gotten. He had told his family he would enter the academy and graduate with honors. Now he couldn't go back to the palace. He started thinking about just going on a trip. Elemi decided a trip wasn't a bad idea. One missing prince wouldn't really affect the country much. He was still thinking it over when someone knocked at his inn door. He answered, told the visitor he was busy and had already paid for the room. A calm voice said good evening. The girl from the exam stood at the door, the one who had been watching him so closely. Her expression was unreadable. Elemi stared at her. Her face felt familiar, though he couldn't place it yet. She confirmed she already knew about his rejection from the primary section. She called out his number and fake name, Elemi Noi, number 017, and told him she had come to get him. Elemi heard her voice call out Brise. The name hit him like a jolt. In his past life, a few people had followed him across the battlefield. One of them was small and thin, chasing after him like a puppy in the middle of danger. She introduced herself, Lily Atuka, newly assigned as an instructor for the upper section of the Cavalry Academy. She was his last disciple. Elemi stared at her, completely floored. Lily told him to call her Sensei Atuka. He corrected himself quickly. She told him to get his things. There was a carriage waiting. She was heading to the Reen Cavalry School dormitories. Elemi asked where exactly. Lily thought to herself that he had grown so much, while Elemi thought to himself that he was no longer Brise, and never expected to find his disciple here. The other girls at the dormitory crowded around Elemi, fussing over how small and cute he was. Elemi endured it flatly. They wondered if he was their age, or a younger sibling, or maybe a boy. Lily explained the school had separate dorms for men and women connected by a bridge, with strict rules about crossing. The girls were still chattering. Lily told the girls to go to bed, and they scattered. Elemi pulled her aside and asked why he was in the women's dormitory. He was supposed to have failed the primary section. She reminded him to call her sensei. She told him she had brought him here herself and that the other students couldn't check, with Elemi catching on that she had arranged his enrollment some other way. Lily explained that because Elemi's scores in both knowledge and physical ability were exceptional, he was granted direct entry into the upper section instead. The primary section was too risky, he might hurt the other students. Elemi took it in quietly. His past life memories gave him skills far beyond any normal child. Then Lily added that until very recently, she had thought he was a girl, which was also why she had put him in the women's dormitory. Elemi's application had listed him as female. The ink had been erased and rewritten, with different handwriting. He realized immediately his mother had changed his gender on the form, planning to embarrass him into coming home. Lily explained the situation. No rooms were left in the men's dorm. The student list was already finalized, and if she rejected the arrangement, Elemi would have nowhere to stay. He had no choice but to accept it. Elemi sighed. Lily noticed and said he reminded her of someone who used to sigh just like that. She named the legendary swordsman Brise. Elemi went very still. He asked what was happening. Lily said Elemi might have heard the name before. Elemi thought to himself, it was him. Just as he knew Lily's past, she knew his. He was embarrassed for her to see him like this, even if she wouldn't believe him if he said so. Lily mentioned she had read about Brise in historical records and was surprised someone could be so capable at a young age. Elemi remembered it differently. She had been chasing him across battlefields, copying his moves, and surviving. Elemi wondered how he had died. He set the thought aside. Lily moved on and said they should talk about the dormitory situation. He noted that his mind was that of an old man, so the dormitory atmosphere didn't really appeal to him. He also admitted that compared to the other girls, Lily felt more like his type now, though she was still just his disciple in his eyes. He pushed the thought away. The other girls said goodnight to Lily, and she told them to answer once and stop dragging it out. Walking with Elemi, she asked if he had already made friends. He said he had only met them the day before. Lily mentioned she had become known at the school before even arriving. Word had spread that she fought in the war against the Republic and King Kilpus had wanted to name her the second legendary sword. Elemi was shocked. Elemi was stunned by how much Lily had accomplished after his death. She had retired from the army once the peace treaty was signed, trying to avoid becoming a celebrity, but the story spread anyway, and she ended up assigned to the school. Elemi was quietly furious. He had put her through all of that. He apologized without explaining why. Lily asked why he was sorry. They arrived at the dormitory. Lily showed Elemi to his room. It was well furnished. The women's dormitory was clearly better equipped than expected. Elemi noticed something unusual. Lily's belongings were already in the room. She told Elemi he would be living there with her from that day on. Elemi stared at her. Brise, the sword master who tore through battlefields, reborn as Prince Elemi with his past life memories intact. He had hidden his identity, enrolled in the upper division of the Royal Cavalry School Lean, and there reunited with Lily, his former disciple, who had become his teacher. Elemi stood in the room and declared that this was wrong. He had ended up sharing a room with her. Lawrence, still recovering, complained that Elemi had won by dirty tricks and lacked the spirit of a knight. The school administrator pointed out that a man and woman, especially a student and teacher, sharing a room was inappropriate. Lily stepped in and said Elemi would stay in her room. Since she was the king's envoy and there were no other rooms available, the administrator reluctantly backed down. Lawrence smirked, saying this meant Elemi still couldn't officially pass, but Lily shut it down. Elemi refused loudly. He thought to himself that if he did, he would have no choice but to go on that trip after all. Lily stared him down and reminded him that when she first found him in their past life, he was a scrawny little girl. She noted that he had grown quite a bit since then. Elemi told her to call him Instructor Atuka, not Lily. She corrected herself. Then he asked if she was married. She said no. He pointed out that calling her by her first name was fine, but calling her Lily wasn't, which seemed contradictory. She said it was inappropriate for an unmarried woman to share a room with a man. Elemi told her she was getting old for wasting her years on wars instead of finding a husband. She flinched. He said she could have asked one of his senior disciples to marry her. Lily looked like she had been stabbed. Lily leaned close and told him she could easily handle a child like him. Elemi protested that he was a man and asked if she had no concern about living arrangements. She thought about it and said she wasn't worried about missing a chance to get married. He told her to stop. Elemi clarified he wasn't her father. Lily said he wasn't far off. To her he looked like a son. Lily said she was 25, and to someone Elemi's age, she probably seemed old. Elemi thought she was right. His body was a child's, and he couldn't overpower her unarmed. He found the whole situation ridiculous. She told him to wash up and go to sleep, offering him the bed. He admitted to himself that he had never really seen her as a woman anyway. The topic dropped. Elemi asked if Lily was going to sleep. She said she still had things to do. He told her not to overdo it. Skipping sleep would stop her from getting stronger no matter how much she trained. Lily went still. A memory surfaced, Brise in the past, telling her the same thing after a late-night training session. She finished her work and went to sleep. Elemi thought about it. Lily was 25, and he was a 10-year-old child. He apologized for the remark earlier and told her to forget it. She asked which one. He had no answer. Later in the room, the two settled in for the night. A memory from the past. Young Lily training relentlessly at night. Brise had stood nearby and told her she was always too serious. His teaching was blunt and direct. Keep moving, keep swinging, watch others and take what works, push through pain, and above all, live. The young Lily listened carefully. Elemi reflected that most of it had sounded like empty words at the time, but every knight who had mocked them as unorthodox had fallen, while his disciples survived and saved even more lives. That was the pride he carried from his past life. Lily turned toward him and said, "Well done." He asked what she meant. She said it was nothing. Well done for surviving. Elemi stood quietly. Elemi held one of the stuffed animals and muttered that if Lily liked cute things, she could have just asked him for some back then. Lily told him to move over on the bed. He thought about how the only thing he ever gave her in his past life was a sword, and on top of that, he probably took away more than he gave, like her chance to get married. Lily asked him to move over too, not just the stuffed animal. Lily warned Elemi not to sleep in the middle or there would be no room. He asked why she was assuming they'd share the bed. She said it was cramped, but they had to bear with it until another one arrived. Elemi gave up arguing. Then Lily admitted quietly that she liked cute things and told him not to worry about her. Elemi shot back that he wasn't a stuffed animal and declared he'd sleep on the floor instead. He stomped off and settled down. Later that night, Lily picked him up off the floor while he was still half asleep and apologized for waking him. Lily said she couldn't let a kid sleep on the floor. He might get sick. She told him to sleep by her side. Elemi panicked and said that wasn't something she should be teaching. Lily just laughed and said she used to say the same thing when she was young. Elemi froze. Lily pointed out that the same thing had happened to her once. Lily explained that when she was around 10, a man had taken her to his inn, thrown her on the bed, stripped her, and given her clean clothes without asking. Elemi went pale. Then Lily added that the man hadn't done anything wrong. She said she should have explained that sooner. Lily recalled that the man had given her a bath, clean clothes, and let her sleep beside him out of pure kindness. Elemi went quiet as the memory clicked into place. That man was him, Brise. Elemi admitted he did remember doing exactly that, and felt a bit guilty about how rough he had been. Lily said it was his fault for being so tactless. Then she pointed out that she had never said it was Brise. Elemi froze. Lily asked how he knew. He scrambled to cover it up, saying Brise just seemed like the type. She agreed. Rough, careless, reckless, but told him not to go that far. Lily confirmed she had been his last disciple. Lily pinned Elemi down on the bed and told him there was no escaping. She said she was Brise's last disciple and planned to do for Elemi exactly what her master had done for her. Whatever discomfort he felt, she had already gone through it herself, and it was simply kindness. Elemi gave in and called her instructor Ituka. Lily settled beside him. Elemi thought to himself that the two of them were basically the same person, rough, careless, and reckless, just different faces and ages. Lily said she wished this could have gone on for years and years, forever. Elemi went quiet. Lily added she thought Brise would have wanted her to put down the sword and settle down, given how big the age gap between them was. Lily said she hadn't cared about formalities. Whether things between them became something more or he treated her like a daughter forever, it didn't matter to her. She had called it a formless sword. Elemi stared at the ceiling, silent. He had no memory of his death and no idea how she had felt about him at the end. Lily thought back. She had followed that figure across battlefields for years, but no matter how fast she ran, she could never quite reach him. Then he was gone. She had chased and chased, but her hands always came up empty. He had gone somewhere she couldn't follow. Lily said she didn't need a husband or children. She could give all of that up. Elemi heard her and told her to stop. He reminded himself that he was no longer Brise and could not be what she needed. These words were not meant for him. He shouldn't be listening. In Lily's memory, Brise had gathered her and his other disciples together and told them all to think of each other as family, and to think of him as family too. He had said it himself. Lily had just wanted to be part of that, part of Brise's family. Elemi clenched his fist in the dark. He was no longer Brise and could do nothing for her. Silently, he made a wish. If there was a god out there, erase his memories from Lily's mind and make her happy instead. The next day, school finally started. Lily smiled to herself, ready. Elemi was already up early, sitting with a practice sword. A girl sat outside under the night sky looking pleased with herself. Tomorrow was the day. School was about to begin. Morning. Elemi woke up and stretched. Lily stood nearby with a pensive expression, already deep in thought. Elemi got a sudden hiccup and fell off the bed. Lily rushed over and asked if he was okay. She mentioned that hitting the diaphragm hard was supposed to stop hiccups, something Brise had taught her. Elemi denied any connection between himself and Brise. Lily looked suspicious. Lily pointed out that Elemi's morning stretches were exactly the same ones Brise used to do. She had read about it in a book on his routine. Elemi asked for the title, and Lily admitted she forgot. Elemi thought to himself that he never actually taught her those. She had just copied him on her own. Lily said she kept doing them because as his last disciple, she felt she had to follow his habits. Lily told Elemi she sometimes saw Brise when she looked at him, especially during the practical exam, when he swung the sword in that absurd way. She wondered if Elemi was secretly Brise's child. Elemi flatly denied it, and said he looked nothing like that old man. Lily laughed quietly. Elemi added that Lily seemed more like Brise's last disciple than he did, which was strange given how different they were. Lily smiled. Lily laughed, and said Brise's face looked like a potato. She admitted it scared her the first time they met. Elemi watched her laugh and thought it was just like the old days. He told her she was laughing too much. Lily walked into the upper secondary classroom as the new instructor. The students buzzed. She looked nothing like the broad-shouldered fighter they had imagined. Elemi stood nearby and wondered how much of a stir she had caused while he was gone. Lily introduced herself and the class. Before attendance, she called Elemi up and introduced him. 10 years old, admitted to upper secondary based on his results. She told the class to treat him well. Elemi decided he had to act confident right away or he'd be written off. He stood up straight. Lily assigned him a fixed seat and told the rest to sit by exam number tomorrow. Elemi objected. He didn't want special treatment just for skipping grades. Lily told him to call her Ituka-sensei. Lily leaned in and said it wasn't special treatment. He was just short. Elemi went red. The class went quiet for a moment. Then someone let out a quiet laugh. Lily pointed out that especially for someone in a guiding role, he needed to watch his attitude. Elemi fumed silently. The class exploded when Elemi was introduced. Everyone called him adorable. He stood there stiff and mortified. Lily told him to drink milk every day so he'd grow taller and stronger. He shot back that he didn't need that advice. Studying upper secondary material was tough. Even with past life knowledge, Elemi had to be careful not to stand out too much. He focused during class. After school, a classmate walked up and greeted him cheerfully. A girl with a bright smile called out to Elemi using a nickname, Noi Noi. The girl asked if he wanted to team up. Elemi had no idea what she meant. She hushed him, pulled him aside, and said it was a secret. Nobody else knew yet. She explained that the upper school had real combat in its curriculum, not practice, but actual fighting. Elemi thought she meant fencing drills. She shook her head and said it was a dungeon curriculum. She told him to keep it quiet. The dungeon curriculum was being tested experimentally at this school only and hadn't been announced yet. The goal was to clear monsters and secure nearby areas. Elemi asked if that was the official line. She said yup, exactly as expected from someone who skipped grades. Dungeons were originally handled by the knights. Ordinary people going in unarmed was basically suicide. A dragon once burned a whole country after thieves stole from its hoard. After that, countries adopted the rule of sealing dungeon entrances and not touching what was inside. But that policy varied depending on the monsters found. Countries still sent knights in because dungeons held rare treasures, advanced spells, and resources that had shaped history. Elemi found it hard to believe the school would hand that job to students. The girl pointed out that if the dungeon curriculum had been hidden even in the booklet, she was probably onto something real. Elemi said monster hunting sounded interesting, a good way to test his weakened body. But he said he didn't need a partner slowing him down. The girl just smiled. Elemi admitted he'd planned to work alone, even if it was lonely, to avoid being a burden to anyone. The girl brought up the practical exam and said Elemi had taken out instructor Lawrence. Elemi denied killing him. Lawrence just broke some ribs. She waved it off and hugged him, saying he was cute and capable, so there was no reason not to team up. Elemi noted that under the bubbly act, she was actually thinking clearly. Elemi felt something off about her, like talking to a smooth-talking con artist. He couldn't tell if she was talking down to him because of his age or trying to get his guard down. He told himself not to get involved with her. Elemi dropped the act and said there was nothing in it for him. She grinned and said there was, because he was still hiding something. Elemi froze. She asked if she'd hit the mark. The girl already knew Elemi was hiding something. She said it was fine if he didn't want to say it, but he knew what came next. Elemi was certain she didn't know he was a prince or Brise's reincarnation, but he wasn't fully sure. Elemi asked directly if it was that obvious he was royal. He thought through the problem. If his cover blew, the whole school would get dragged into it and he'd get special treatment, which would make the whole point of coming here worthless. He gave in and agreed to team up. The girl looked pleased. She offered to introduce herself properly since they hadn't officially met. She admitted she only remembered him because he was her type. There were only 4 girls in the class, so standing out wasn't hard. Elemi told her that calling himself a kid was something only adults did. She laughed and said he really did sound like a man. Miku introduced herself cheerfully, doing a little pose. The other girl gave her name as Elemi Noi and said he could call her whatever he liked. Elle stared, caught off guard. When Miku added her family name, Ornheim, Elle froze and asked if her grandfather was the great Mardo Ornheim. Miku corrected him. Mardo was her father. Elle's mind filled in the rest. Mardo Ornheim was a famous margrave, tough, unbeatable, led mountain-trained knights and mysterious wizards. Elle had known of him in his past life. If still alive, Mardo would be around 70. Having such a young daughter felt odd. Way too much to take in at once. Mika decided to call Elle Tan. Elle wasn't pleased. Mika told him to call her whatever felt comfortable, so Elle just said Elle was fine. Miku immediately announced she'd call him Puppy instead. Elle gave up and went along with it. They shook hands, and Mika headed off cheerfully. Elle watched her go, uneasy. Someone finding out his secret this fast was bad. Then a voice called out from behind him. Elle turned to find a tall, older student watching him with calm, unreadable eyes. Elle tensed and demanded to know what he wanted. The older student asked why Elle was so worked up. He crouched down to Elle's level and asked if Miku was his girlfriend or sister. Elle said nothing. The student pointed at Elle directly. He was the one Elle had a problem with. The student grabbed Elle's collar, and Elle thought fast. That conversation was a secret. Saying anything risked Miku using it against him. So he stayed quiet. He told the student there was nothing romantic going on, so he had nothing to worry about. The student called Elle a fool and said he was nothing like the other kids. Elle said nothing back. Elle said he wasn't interested in the romantic lives of kids his age. The student pointed out that Elle looked like a kid himself. Elle kept a straight face, though he was sweating inside. He wondered if this guy knew he'd beaten Lawrence, or had his eye on Miku. The student asked for Elle's name. Elle hesitated. Elle gave his name as Void. The student asked for a last name. Void said he didn't have one. He came from the slums of Elva. No parents, no family, not even a common citizen. Most students here were nobles. He was the opposite. Elva was a seaside city with a bright tourist area up front and a grim slum on the other side. Various shady groups had settled into the shadows there, always stirring up trouble. The bigger the light, the darker what it hid. Void's last name came from his orphanage, Scale. He hadn't used it since leaving and didn't respond to it anymore. L noted that. Getting into this school from the slums wasn't easy, so this guy had to have real ability. Void grabbed L before he could slip away and told him he was pretty cunning for a kid. L just smiled. Void told L he didn't actually care what he and Mika talked about. He just had some advice, older brother to younger, about Miss Ornheim. He looked at L and told him plainly to be careful. Scene shifted to the dormitory that night. L was exhausted but had no room key. Lily hadn't given him one. He headed toward the teacher's floor to sort it out, annoyed. Partway up the stairs, someone came flying around the corner and crashed right into him. It was Miku. She grabbed him and greeted him like nothing happened. Mika pointed out that L shouldn't be on the teacher's floor and teased him about lurking. L tried to explain he shared a room with Lily, but that only made it sound worse. Miku reminded him he was still a boy, small or not, and asked what he was actually doing there. L pushed back and asked her the same thing. There were no student rooms here. Mika said she'd spotted L heading up the stairs and got curious about what he was doing outside a professor's room. L pushed her off and asked if she'd been following him. She insisted it was just a coincidence. L thought it over. She probably hadn't seen him with Void. Mika told him she wouldn't tell anyone and invited him to visit her next time. L stared after her, wondering how she'd gotten close without him noticing. Mika pointed out that L had been knocking on Lily's door, which looked pretty suspicious. L panicked. Somehow he'd become the one acting shady. The next morning, students gathered outside. Their teacher announced it was weapon selection day. It was Blaze, the holy swordsman, known for using anything that could be called a weapon. Blaze explained the school existed because of his merits. The king founded it so students could learn all kinds of fighting styles, not just noble swordsmanship. He told them to pick whatever suited them. One student immediately grabbed a rapier, saying it was elegant and he'd trained with a master. L thought he was naive. Clean swordsmanship with rules and form meant nothing on a real battlefield. Real combat was completely different. Half the types who trained only in polished technique didn't survive their first fight. The ones who did dropped the rapier and picked up double-edged swords, adding slashing to thrusting, fighting like something feral. L had gone far beyond even that in his past life, and he knew exactly what it cost. Lily watched the students quietly. Several others picked rapiers too, typical noble choices. L said nothing. They wouldn't understand until they actually faced war. He hoped this school could at least give them something real before that day came. L reached into the case and pulled out a Bundy dagger. The Bundy dagger had shorter range than a short sword, but was tough and reliable, good for someone who fought up close. L decided it would do. Miku picked a rapier and a main gauche, a smart pair. The main gauche covered the rapier's biggest weakness and worked as a backup if it broke. A solid choice for a Margrave's daughter. Miku patted L on the head and offered to protect L if needed. L pushed back right away. Nobody should pat a man's head like that. Miku pointed out that L hadn't decided on a weapon yet, and that a real sword might be too heavy. L noticed a student nearby pick up a katana. L thought that guy would be interesting to watch. L knew a large sword or katana would be the natural choice for someone with his past experience, but this small body couldn't handle it. L also noticed Lily's stare felt oddly cold. L pushed those thoughts aside and settled on the Bundy dagger. Shorter range, but it fit the current body better than anything heavy. L picked up a gladius for slashing and a stiletto for thrusting, one in each hand. Using both at once felt impractical, so L kept them separate. L looked at the two weapons and figured the rest would depend on how well L used them. Everyone had made their choices. Miku stood ready with a rapier and main gauche. Void held a Bundy dagger. The katana student kept his pick. The class was set. Lily wrapped up the first day and told everyone to rest before formal classes started tomorrow. As the students relaxed, one stepped forward and called out to instructor Ituka, asking about the curriculum content. Lily looked at the student directly. Lily recognized the student as the one who picked the katana, Ryoka Ojin, a foreign student. Ryoka confirmed the name with a respectful nod. Ryoka said it was an honor for instructor Lily to have remembered the name. Lily said plainly that the comparison to the real sword saint, Brise, was too much. Regardless, Lily told Ryoka the curriculum content was under orders from the director. No one could reveal it until classes began. Elle found the mention of a director odd. The school documents listed no principal. Elle guessed it might be General Orinkemu, but based on how Miku acted, that didn't seem right. Unless Miku was just playing dumb. Either way, Elle couldn't rule it out. Miku suddenly reacted with surprise. Elle noticed Ryoka was taller than Elle, but still small compared to the other boys his age. Mika grabbed Elle, and Elle told Lily to go ahead. Lily gave a brief nod and continued. Elle caught Miku's comment. Mika thought Ryoka looked like a foreign student, possibly from the eastern continent. Lily added one more thing before ending class. Each student needed to form a group of 4 by the next day, 5 groups total for 20 students. Lily also suggested girls avoid grouping only with each other due to physical differences. After class, Miku pulled Elle aside and pointed out Ryoka, saying that guy seemed suspicious. Elle had never heard that a foreign spy had gotten into the school, but Miku seemed to find it credible. The Royal Knight Academy of Lian had direct ties to the kingdom's Knight Order. Graduating meant a straight path in. Most instructors were knights, even Lawrence. A spy targeting that kind of school made sense. Elle pointed out that Miku, who somehow knew about the unannounced curriculum, was the more suspicious one. If Ryoka were really a spy, an obviously Eastern face would be a terrible cover. Elle figured there was something else going on. Miku just laughed it off. Ryoka said nothing and kept walking. The class was taken to a location at the far north of the academic city of Lian, built specifically for the curriculum. Lily stood before the entrance and announced what it was, a dungeon. Most students reacted with excitement. Miko laughed and called it a field trip. Elle was less impressed. Lily explained the dungeon had been partly explored by the instructors as a safety measure. The creatures inside were artificial, borrowed from an affiliated magic school, not real ones. Even so, Lily made it clear that complete safety was not guaranteed. Lily opened the dungeon door. The darkness inside stretched deep. Slash marks cut across the entrance stone as a quiet reminder of what was waiting inside. The instructors had explored down to the 3rd level. Everything beyond that was blocked off by an iron gate and left unexplored. Lily told the students that as the curriculum progressed, more levels would be unlocked. Elle noted that the unexplored levels might have real creatures, but that was a problem for another day. The group descended underground and entered the 1st level. Lights were lit. The cave opened up into a wide, dark space. Elle crouched and tapped the floor. Sound faded fast. The space was larger than it looked. Miku noted the stairs had been clean, but the cave itself felt natural. Elle agreed. In this world, there were 2 types of dungeons. Natural dungeons like caves held little monetary value but were home to dangerous creatures and risked becoming monster nests over time. Artificial dungeons, built by civilizations that predated humanity, were far more valuable. Rare metals, unknown grimoires, and treasures of great worth were found inside them. A large enough artificial dungeon could start wars between nations. The other students who had been excited earlier were now anxious. The dungeon had no visible end. Elle kept calm and quietly noted that Void also seemed unfazed compared to the rest. Elle called out to Miku. Void asked Lily if going ahead alone was allowed. Lily shut that down immediately. The creatures inside would attack, and injuries were guaranteed even if death wasn't. Elle hadn't formed a group. Lily reminded everyone to move with the 4-person teams from the day before and to address instructors properly. Elle wanted nothing to do with that. No babysitting useless people. Miku ignored all of it and grabbed Elle anyway, rubbing against Elle's face and saying Elle was someone worth relying on. Elle told Miku to stop and get away. Miku asked Elle to come get wild with Miku in Miku's room. Elle shot that down immediately. Miku laughed and said becoming a beast works on a battlefield too, then caught herself saying that to a 10-year-old. Elle gave up arguing. Elle told Miku to knock it off or the secret would come out. Miku backed off, clearly entertained. Elle thought hard. If the fact that Elle was a prince got out, the dungeon curriculum would be off the table. Elle decided to go all in and play things carefully. Nearby students were already gossiping about the short guy flirting around. Most students had already formed groups. Ryoka and Void were the only 2 still alone. Ryoka looked bored. Void looked uninterested. Elle already had a bad feeling. Lily put it plainly. Void and Ryoka would join Miku and Elle's team. Elle immediately said it was unnecessary. Lily didn't repeat herself. Ryoka said everyone except Elle was a nuisance, and that babysitting noble kids wasn't something Ryoka planned to do. Void said the same thing differently, no interest in teaming up at all. Both of them stood firm until Lily stepped in and told them plainly that refusing meant no participation. Void and Elle flinched. Lily cut them off cold. Join Orinkama's team, or sit out. No third option. Void and Ryoka went silent. Lily's pressure hit the whole group. Even Elle, a former sword saint, felt it land. Miku was delighted. Elle nearly cried. Ryoka and Void both grumbled, but neither pushed back. The group was settled, and already felt like a disaster in the making. Lily laid out the dungeon rules. Students could move as a class or split into teams, but the minimum was 4 people per group. Anyone injured had to be helped by the rest. Lily reminded them that the more dangerous creatures had already been cleared, leaving only the practice ones, but staying alert was still required. Lily gave the class one goal: reach the iron door at the bottom of the 3rd level and check the ancient markings on it. With that, the first dungeon run of the Royal Knight Academy of Lian began. Elle, Ryoka, Miku, and Void moved in together, none of them knowing yet that this simple first run would turn into something much worse. Someone screamed. A body hit the ground hard under falling rubble. The curriculum had barely started, and it had already become a major incident. Bonus chapter. Lily told Elle to sleep instead of staying up late. Elle looked up and asked what Lily meant. Lily had started changing right there without warning. Elle yelled at Lily to stop. Lily said it was fine since they shared a room. Elle declared it was absolutely not fine and stepped out, mortified. Elle stepped out of the room to kill time and immediately got tackled by Miku, who had been searching the girls' dorm for Elle. Miku demanded to know why Elle was wandering around at that hour and whether Elle was there to visit someone else. Miku decided Elle's current sleepwear was lame and tossed some of Miku's own at Elle before Elle could resist. Elle ended up in a fluffy cat-eared outfit. Miku loved it. Other girls in the dorm started gathering and fussing over Elle. One of them asked if Elle was actually a girl. More girls piled in and started dressing Elle up further. Elle screamed at all of them to stop. Nobody stopped. A senior student arrived and told everyone to get back to their rooms at once. The group scattered. Elle stood there still in the cat outfit, relieved. The senior gave Elle one look and said not bad. A screen was later put up in the room, so changing wouldn't be a problem anymore. Elle woke up in pain with no idea where Elle was. The dungeon around Elle was wrecked. Rubble everywhere. Elle looked up, confused and hurting. Elle and Miku stood ready in the dungeon. Something massive loomed nearby. Ryoka and Void were nearby. The message was simple: Swing your sword and survive. A few moments earlier, Lily called the start and the students entered the dungeon. Most of them froze at the darkness ahead. Elle stayed calm and calculated. Judging by the echo, everyone would be funneled the same direction for a while. Elle's plan was to find the stairs to the second floor. A golem blocked the path. It was slow and moved in a straight line, but the sheer size of it froze most of the students on the spot. A few managed to get their weapons out. One student charged in, yelling to go for it. The students took down the golem and celebrated. Elle noticed that Lily had set up easy early enemies to build their confidence. Miku spotted the stairs to the second floor first and rushed ahead. Elle called out, but Miku was already moving. At the base of the stairs, a figure stood in the doorway. Elle froze. Something was there, and it wasn't a golem. Elle clocked right away that this creature was different. The practice creatures weren't supposed to have a will, but this one clearly did. Elle grabbed Miku's arm and told Miku not to move. Elle figured Miku had more to her than expected. The creature stepped forward, visibly agitated. Void assumed it was another practice creature and moved to attack. Elle tried to warn Void to stop. Void struck at the creature, but it blocked and countered hard. Ryoka jumped in too. The creature's claws knocked both of them back. Elle watched, unable to do much with this small body. The creature grabbed Elle and hurled Elle into the air. Elle went flying, smashed into something, and crashed down along with most of the class. Ryoka hit the ground with a wound deep enough to reach the organs. Elle assessed the damage fast. Left untreated, Ryoka would die. Elle snapped at the panicking students to keep facing the creature and not turn away. The creature grinned and lashed out again, sending more students flying before Elle or Void could react. The creature slammed the floor with enough. Elle and Miku fell through the hole together. Elle looked up at how far they dropped and tried to figure out where they landed. Miku noted they'd fallen more than 2 floors. Elle saw that Miku had used the falling debris to slow the landing. The floor below was artificial, completely different from the natural cave above, and likely unknown to the instructors. Elle came around and confirmed the situation. Void was fine. Ryoka was furious. Miku reported the other groups were mostly down with minor injuries, but no deaths. Elle stayed quiet, briefly troubled. Being knocked out, even for a moment, exposed how different this body was from the past. Miku asked Ryoka to use first names since they were now a party. Ryoka said nothing. Void pointed out there was one student close to giving up, likely the one who charged in first and put everyone at risk. Elle told Void to drop it, since a monster encounter was always going to happen eventually. Elle checked on Void, who brushed off the concern and said just a cut from wiping sweat. Elle noticed someone had cushioned Ryoka's fall, likely Void, given the injury. Elle let it go without saying anything. Elle thought about who really saved who, glancing at Void. The flashback panels showed Void pulling Elle clear during the collapse, Elle bracing Ryoka mid-fall, and both landing hard together. Ryoka walked over calmly and asked if the honor student was okay. Elle noticed Ryoka was completely unshaken. Ryoka had been scouting while everyone else was still recovering and wasn't even rattled. Elle noted that, quietly impressed. Ryoka told everyone to stay put and went to scout the area. Miku moved to follow, but Void cut Miku off. Elle backed that up. Miku and Elle would hold position and protect the wounded. Elle got called a kid for it and reacted. Ryoka told Elle to protect Miku and promised to find a way out. Elle gave in. Others called out for Lily but got no response. Miku asked Elle directly if this still felt like part of the curriculum. Elle wasn't sure anymore. Elle concluded this was almost certainly an accident. The natural dungeon had connected to an undiscovered artificial one. Elle hoped Lily would reach them in time. Miku asked if there was even a chance against a creature that could crack the floor with its bare hands. Elle admitted honestly that the answer was unknown. Even pulling from past life memories, nothing like that creature had ever been seen before. Elle sat quietly, uneasy about Lily facing that thing. Miku noticed and pointed it out. Elle didn't deny it. Miku pushed a little more, asking if Elle had a thing for older women. Elle said maybe, mentally at least. Miku didn't know what to make of that answer. Miku offered to share, and Elemi turned it down flat. Void watched from the side and couldn't figure out why Miku made Elemi so uneasy. Then Elemi's expression changed completely. Something was coming. Elemi grabbed Miku and told everyone to stop yelling. Students were already calling for Lily. Elemi went still. Something was moving in the corridor below, but the words weren't clear. A goblin stepped into the light, holding a weapon. More goblins poured in from every direction. The students calling for help had drawn the whole horde straight to them. Elemi and Miku braced as the tunnel filled wall to wall. Goblins, weak alone, but not in this number. Elemi and Miku stared at the packed corridor ahead of them. Elemi knew goblins don't kill for food. They kill without reason, the same way humans swat insects. They move in packs, they hold grudges, and no amount of talking gets through to them. Students started turning their backs to the goblins. Elemi caught it and snapped at everyone to face forward. Elemi's voice wasn't fully developed yet, but the command came out anyway. All of Group 1, draw weapons. Ryoka's voice cut through first. Elemi noticed the volume coming from that frame. Ryoka called shield bearers to the front and told everyone to get swords ready. Students locked shields in a line. Elemi felt something familiar. The pressure, the noise, the heat of it all. It felt like a real battlefield, and something old stirred. Elemi broke into a grin and moved to flank. Mika shouted to get back, calling it too dangerous for a kid. Elemi ignored that and signaled Ryoka, who confirmed the plan without hesitation. Void tore through the goblins from the middle of the pack. Elemi watched and felt something click. a sensation not felt since the previous life. The goblins scattered where Void hit. Elemi stood wide-eyed. The feeling was unmistakable. Real combat, not practice. Not felt since the previous life. Miku called out that Ryoka was in trouble. Elemi assessed fast. A katana used only for blocking would bend. With this body, the only option was to slip through the group rather than bulldoze through it. Elemi moved anyway, knowing it was reckless. Elemi slipped between goblins, deflecting strikes on both sides at once. The heart was racing, fully, completely alive in a way that hadn't happened in a long time. Miku called Elemi brutal. Ryoka, still holding on, noticed Elemi coming and pushed for one more opening. Ryoka called to Miku for cover and pushed into the center. Miku protested. Ryoka went anyway. Elemi noted, more than just an honor student. Elemi thought briefly about needing someone to guard a flank, then pushed the thought away. Elemi told Ryoka to hold on, then spotted Miku charging in with a bundy dagger and told Ryoka not to have all the fun alone. Void landed in the middle of the remaining goblins, laughing. Ryoka noted the performance wasn't a fluke. Void grinned and said growing up in the slums fighting both humans and monsters left no room for manners. Ryoka agreed, it showed. Void and Ryoka lined up side by side. Void spotted the next wave first. Both told each other not to mess up, weapons ready. Void pushed straight through and told Elemi and Miku not to overdo it. The two of them would rejoin Elemi's side once through. The class rallied and the groups converged on the remaining goblins. Elemi noted it was surprisingly good teamwork for a group thrown together by accident. The four fought until the corridor cleared. When the dust settled, Ryoka asked if any were left. A few had escaped, but most were down. The group stood together in the quiet. The class made it through the dungeon incident. Some students joked that it wasn't so bad. Others wondered if it was part of the curriculum or just an accident. Ouji stayed quiet, already thinking clearly. Without Void stepping in, and without Ouji shouting a warning, everyone would have been wiped out. The class survived, but only by luck. 3 people with real combat experience happened to be there. The others made it through coincidence. One older student confirmed it was definitely an accident, not planned. Elemi pulled away from the group debate and told the others not to rely on anyone else to save them. Then turned right around and asked Ouji if Ouji loved Elemi. Elemi lashed onto Ouji and declared that the cold, dismissive attitude was exactly what made Ouji so lovable. Ouji pushed back, calling Elemi kind of annoying. Elemi swore not to give up. Across the dungeon, another student returned from scouting and reported finding the stairs, going down. Ouji told Void to drop the honor student act. Void introduced himself as Ryoka Ouji and said Ouji hadn't built the dungeon. Void offered to call Ouji by name if Ouji did the same. The others watched. Void told Ouji and Elemi they were the only 2 useful people in the class. Elemi caught the word too and raised an eyebrow. Void admitted Elemi had guts too, the kind only old man Brise was supposed to have. Elemi got annoyed at being called a kid and threatened to knock Void out. Void told Elemi to calm down or die young. Elemi shot back with a marriage declaration toward Ouji. Ouji snapped. Elemi grinned and said Ouji looked cute when mad. Elemi told Ouji to get married somewhere private. Ouji refused loudly. The whole thing was a mess. Elemi pushed further, suggesting Ouji's type was someone older like instructor-Ituka. Ouji denied having any kind of relationship with Lily. Someone pointed out Ouji already called Lily by first name. Elemi got jealous. Ouji gave up and apologized, admitting to not being good with this kind of topic. Everyone called Ouji way too serious. Void invited Ouji to visit the tourist town of Elva and promised to show the real side of the slums. Ouji went red and passed. Elemi cut in and told Void that Elemi was off limits and would handle the teaching personally. Void shrugged. Elemi sulked about why Void had any say in it. Love, Elemi decided, was free. Void pointed out that love was free but crime wasn't. In Gallant, pursuing a 10-year-old was a serious offense. Keep it up and Void might lose standing with the Orankamo family. Elemi looked confused. Ouji interrupted to get everyone back on track. The stairs to the upper floors still hadn't been found, and a decision needed to be made. Waiting for rescue wasn't an option. The group was already on the lower level. Instructors would struggle to find them. 2 choices: move everyone while carrying the injured, or send a small team ahead. There were goblins, and worse down here. The injured male student was in bad shape. Ouji brought up instructor Ituka, but then stopped. Planning around hopeful assumptions was pointless. Bilba was running out of time. Void told Ouji that thinking too hard in dangerous situations leads to death. Act on instinct like an animal. Elemi backed small group recon. Ouji was surprised by the sharpness of the suggestion, then caught Elemi trying to hide a smirk. The group agreed. Assume help won't come, prepare for the worst, and send a small team to scout. Void agreed with Elemi's plan, but kept calling Elemi a kid. Elemi corrected. The name was Elemi Noi. Moving Ilga was risky since the wound hadn't closed. A stretcher would be ideal, but not with enemies around. The plan: use this area as a base, send a small team to find the stairs, and move everyone together floor by floor until they reach the surface. 2 students talked quietly about Void, rough on the outside, but Void had jumped in to help Ouji when Ouji was surrounded during the fall. Void noticed everything and looked out for everyone without making it obvious. Void reminded one of them of someone else, maybe even a reincarnated being. But still, something felt off. Void was here to protect everyone. Void told Ouji directly, not pretending to be anything, just living honestly. Unlike Orankamo. Orinkamo asked what that was supposed to mean. Void said nothing more. Elemi, watching from nearby, had been on guard around Miku for a while now, and still didn't understand why. The group pressed the mage family student to use healing magic. The student refused, never trained in it. Elemi pushed back. Without it, Ilga would die. The student snapped and said coming from a mage family didn't make one a healer. Everyone looked at Elemi. Could Elemi use magic? If so, Ilga's chances jumped significantly. Elemi shouted that healing magic wasn't something Elemi could do. Elemi had run from a future as a mage and enrolled in the Knight Academy instead. That was exactly why healing magic was off the table. The others stared. Then the question shifted. Could Elemi use any magic at all? A girl begged someone to help, saying Ilga was going to die. The student tried to think through it. Repair the magic pathway, create a bypass, alleviate the pain. But the tissue damage was too severe. Magic power alone wasn't enough to reconstruct it. The wound was too big. Then a voice cut in. Mika stepped in with a cooler head. Pain relief was pointless since Ilga was already unconscious. Instead, Miku suggested half-materializing the magic to supplement the tissue, like creating artificial blood vessels. It might hold long enough. The new plan: skip full healing. Focus on keeping Ilga stable until the group escaped. Elemi glanced over at Miku. The student pointed out the cost. Magic would need to flow into Ilga the entire time, leaving nothing left if enemies showed up. Elemi asked if there was another option. Miku answered by asking whether the student was going to run again like before. The question landed hard. Someone asked Orinkamo about healing magic. Orinkamo had basic knowledge, but no tools. Another student admitted the same. Elemi told the student that the ability to use healing magic at all was a real talent, enough to make a living. The student hesitated, then agreed to try. Elemi asked for a name. The student powered up, electricity crackling at the fingertips, and said to call it Fixaugust. Fixaugust. Mika smiled and wished Fix luck. A magic circle lit up around Ilga as Fix got to work. Elemi turned to the others and laid out the plan. Fix would stay and maintain the magic, while a team of 3 would head out for recon and find the staircase up. The group split up. The students staying behind promised to protect Fix and Ilga with their lives. Fix, already casting, said Ilga had magic left to keep going but wasn't confident how long. Elemi asked how much time Ilga had. Fix answered as long as the magic lasted. Fix's magic was barely keeping Ilga stable, but magic would run out in less than half a day. The recon team declined the offer to borrow extra weapons, going small mint keeping what they had. About half the goblins from before were still alive. Someone asked if it was safer to move together. Elemi and Ouji shut that down. Scouts avoid combat and move fast. Elemi explained that a bigger group made more noise and was easier to spot. More people also meant slower movement and less chance of escape. Elemi wanted to grab a few extra weapons, but the base team needed theirs too. The base itself wasn't safe either. Elemi kept that part quiet. Void patted Elemi on the head and called Elemi a clever kid. Elemi told Void to stop treating Elemi like a kid or Elemi wouldn't cooperate. The others said their goodbyes. The recon team headed into the dungeon, and Elemi wondered aloud who built these artificial dungeons. Ouji said dungeons like these were found across the eastern continent, likely leftovers from an older civilization. Magical tomes and unknown metals had been excavated there before. Elemi asked if that meant ruins from a prehistoric civilization. Ouji said it was just a theory, but something with that level of magical technology had to exist somewhere, maybe a demon race from a distant continent. Void laughed and said that was exactly the kind of thing the nation would never admit. Countries stronger than Gallant would make admitting it embarrassing, so it was easier to just pretend the prehistoric civilization never existed. The group reached a large stone entrance and stopped. Ahead was nothing but darkness. Ouji had already checked the left side. No stairs going up. The team would try the middle path. Mika noted that if this dungeon was built for a purpose, there had to be a way back to the surface. Elemi agreed, but pointed out it might be collapsed or blocked. Going down was still to the right. The team moved forward. Someone suggested praying for help from the surface. Elemi asked who exactly to pray to. Ouji explained that Gallant had no state religion. Most citizens didn't believe in a god at all, and those who did each picked their own. Elemi didn't believe in God in a past life either, but quietly figured there was no master who relied on students. So if anyone would answer, it was God. Elemi spotted something and silently covered Ouji's mouth. Miku confirmed it. Enemies were there, just out of range of the light magic and hiding in the dark. Elemi warned the others to watch. Miku threw a stone to flush them out. Goblins emerged from the shadows. Miku pointed them out with a grin. Elemi took one look and relaxed. Just goblins. More goblins poured in from behind. It was an ambush, pincer attack from both sides. The goblins that fled earlier had been hiding in the side paths, waiting. Miku noted they had been lured in. Elemi pointed out the goblins were using actual tactics. Mika seemed almost disappointed it wasn't the monster instead. Elemi grabbed Ouji and threw Ouji out of the way as a goblin charged. Void told Elemi to stay near the edge and let Void handle it. Elemi called Void overprotective. Void told Elemi to shut up and be protected. Someone quietly noted Void moved like the royal palace guards. Void and Miku clashed with the goblins. Void accused Miku of stealing targets. Elemi broke away to fight independently. Void called out. The move was to protect Elemi, not Void. Elemi snapped back, saying Elemi hadn't fallen so low as to need protecting by students. Elemi acknowledged the current body was small and weak, but that just meant fighting smarter. Elemi moved through the fight with a wide grin. This was the first real chance to swing a sword freely since the previous life. Elemi shouted about being fired up. The body was small, but the joy was real. Elemi cut through goblins fast, targeting vital points instead of relying on force. In Elemi's past life as Brise, even up against ogres, cyclops, and dragons, brute strength was never the answer. Elemi had fought all of them anyway. Brise had always combined skill with technique, cutting flesh, breaking bones, slowing enemies down, and then finishing them. The sword style was wild and formless, but built on countless real battles. Elemi used that same approach now, just in a smaller body. A goblin grabbed Elemi's weapon and held on. Void shouted for Elemi to drop it and retreat. Elemi refused. The goblin had spirit, Elemi would give it that. But retreat wasn't happening. Elemi cut the goblin down and kept moving. Another one charged. Elemi took it out too, then said plainly, nothing in this dungeon was going to kill Elemi today. Ouji and Void stared, completely speechless. Elemi told them to stop worrying and do whatever they wanted. From a distance, Miku watched the group fight and noted they were all surprisingly experienced for their age. Ouji moved with precise technique, Miku with raw street instinct, and Elemi with a sword style no one their age should know. With the three of them together, the goblins stood no chance. Void asked where Elemi learned to fight like that. Elemi told Void there was no need to worry, and warned Void to stop treating Elemi like a kid. Void admitted that was fair. Noi, now called Elemi, quietly wondered if this counted as being acknowledged. Someone pointed out it was Elemi's first real fight, calling Elemi a genius for pulling it off at that age. Elemi shrugged, and said it was just copied from reading Brise's books. A third person mentioned training abroad at the Reincarnated Academy under instructor Zettai, who follows Brise's technique, and was surprised to find a student who could replicate it at only 10 years old. Elemi's swordsmanship shared something in common with Zettai's. Ouji explained that the technique came from an island nation, so others might not have heard of it. Ouji practiced the Sky Breaker single sword technique, one that had reportedly produced swordsmen equal to the Sword Saints. The others had heard of it. Ouji asked if Elemi was interested and offered to spar sometime. Elemi wanted to learn the technique too. Before Elemi could reply properly, Ouji pulled Elemi close without warning. A narrator note added that somewhere in the east, a group of swordsmen called sword demons were said to have produced such individuals. Ouji held on and refused to let go, claiming Elemi was small, cute, and strong, and wanted to take Elemi along after graduating. Elemi struggled and yelled to be released. Ouji stuck out a tongue and declared Elemi belonged to Ouji alone. Another voice cut in and told Ouji to back off. Elemi wasn't anyone's property. Ouji clarified it was only a shared interest in swordsmanship and tried to smooth things over, but kept planting little kisses on Elemi's head anyway. Elemi kept demanding to be let go. Elemi broke free and snapped at Ouji to stop. Void watched from nearby, and Elemi noticed, wondering silently if Void might be jealous. Ouji immediately called Void out, asking if Void was into men or younger boys. Void shot back that the question was stupid and that Void only had interest in older women. Ouji grinned and asked if Void was jealous of the bond between Ouji and Elemi. Void looked nauseated. Elemi stood between them, genuinely unsure how this turned into their problem. Void told Ouji it was pointless to argue, and that Ouji was just making things worse by annoying Elemi. Elemi crossed both arms and pointed out that Void was saying all this righteous stuff while still being a delinquent. Void ignored that and turned serious, warning Elemi to be careful around Orinkamo. Elemi paused, not expecting that shift. Standing nearby was Miku, who had been listening the whole time. Void glanced over, apparently aware Miku was right there, and said it plainly anyway. Miku stepped forward and demanded to know if Void had been talking behind Miku's back. Void replied that it wasn't behind Miku's back anymore, since Miku was right there. Miku called Void out, saying gossiping was a pretty girlish thing to do for someone who didn't look it. Void smirked and said Void had no interest in little girls, then turned it around and asked what Miku actually knew about Void and how Void operates, and said to go ahead and share. Elemi stepped back and noted quietly that this was getting bad. Fighting among themselves while deep in the dungeon was the worst thing they could do. Ouji agreed and called for everyone to stop. The group needed to move together. There was no room for this right now. Ouji pointed toward a passage ahead, suggesting they regroup with the others first and move as a unit. Ouji pointed to a large stone door ahead. The group had no real choice. Everyone fell in line. Elemi smiled and agreed to move out. Void clicked a tongue but went along. The others followed. Elemi kept one thought close. The party was strong enough as it stood, but something still felt off. The group walked deeper into the dungeon together. The chapter title read, "It's nerve-wracking." At the back of the group, Miku walked in silence. Miku's face was unreadable. Whatever was going on inside, Miku wasn't letting it show, not yet. A wrecked campsite. Wagons overturned, bodies on the ground. No survivors. Two figures surveyed the scene. One guessed it had been a traveling troupe that wandered into the battlefield at the wrong time. The other asked whether it was the Republic Army or the Kingdom Army that did this. The first had no idea. Without armor or weapons from either side, there was no way to tell, and nothing could be done about it now. One of the figures spotted movement near the wreckage and called out, asking if someone was hiding. A sound came from under one of the wagons. The figure reached in and pulled out a small child, trembling, covered in dirt. The figure told the child it was okay and to come out. A note identified the child, Lily, who had been part of the traveling troupe. No one knew where Lily came from, which made formal placement difficult. The knights refused. Lily had no background that fit their requirements. The knightly order couldn't take in an apprentice dancer with unknown origins. The orphanage was full of war children and had no space. Lily refused to stay at a brothel. In the end, the only option left was for Lily to work as a servant under the group. One of the figures crouched nearby while Lily practiced with a sword, asking if the stance was correct. The instructor called Lily's movement too stiff. Perfecting the form didn't matter. What mattered was staying alive on the battlefield. Their group followed no formal style. They were formless. Lily answered with a firm yes. Then Lily got distracted watching the others train. The instructor noticed and asked if Lily wanted to try swinging a sword too. Lily jumped at the chance, but the sword was too heavy. Lily strained just to lift it. Lily managed to hold the sword up, eyes focused. The instructor warned that today's battlefield was going to be brutal again, then told everyone to move out and to not dare die. Lily gave a solid reply and followed. The battle started. Lily showed up on the field without permission. The instructor spotted Lily and demanded to know what Lily was doing there. That day's fight turned into a real mess. The knights who saw it laughed and made jokes about a stray dog picking up a stray puppy. The instructor couldn't even argue with that. That night, the whole group sat around a fire and laughed about it together. More time passed. Lily kept following the instructor to every battlefield without permission, no matter how many times she got scolded. The instructor barely had time to earn any achievements, too busy keeping Lily alive. It was awful. So awful it was almost funny. The instructor said so with a tired grin. Eventually, Lily stopped needing to be protected. Not because it came naturally. Lily had pushed and forced it until independence was the only option left. The instructor had taught Lily how to kill. Lily's face filled the page, blank, blood splattered. The first time Lily took a life, Lily was around the same age as Elami's current classmates. The instructor knew it was wrong to send Lily to that battlefield. Lily had been raised into a killer, and that weight didn't go away. Elami sat quietly, listening. All that came out was a faint, hollow sound. Back in the dungeon. After everyone moved to the upper floors, the group blocked the stairway with rocks to stop monsters from coming up. Void found Elami sitting off to the side and asked if Elami was tired. Elami explained there wasn't enough strength left to fight, so Elami was resting to save energy for later. Void pointed out that Team 3 was heading out on an expedition. If Elami wasn't actually tired, it was time to get up. And if Elami was bluffing, Void didn't care either way. Lily told Elami to get up. There was no time to rest. Lily was the one who had sent that kid into battle back then, and that memory still pushed Lily forward. Void told Elami to stop pushing too hard. Elami was just a kid, and it was okay to let others take over once in a while. Elami laughed it off. Void called Elami persistent, then told Elami not to hold back either. The group moved into the passage together. Elami asked if there was anything nearby. Lily pointed out that Elami was the martial artist, better at sensing presences than most. Elami admitted it wasn't exactly a compliment for someone Elami's age. Lily laughed and said it wasn't sulking, just pointing out the facts. Back during the Sword Saint days, Elami could sense enemies entering a wide area, even while asleep. That instinct still lived in the body now, but Lily had already detected enemies across an even wider range. Twice already. Elami quietly noted that, a natural gift, not something trained. Something was following the group through the dungeon. Lily suggested running. Whatever was trailing them could slip into any gap and suffocate anyone it got inside. Elami stared at the creature ahead. A slime. And not just one, more were coming. The slime had no real intelligence and moved at a crawl. Its only attack was trying to smother whatever it reached. The real danger was the poison built up inside from absorbing toxic plants along the way. For a swordsman, the danger rating was low, but still a problem. The group spotted the slimes closing in and braced. Cutting the slime with a sword risked ruining the blade from the poison. Worse, the slime could split in two. Physical attacks were useless. Ouji pointed out that if it got someone, the clothes would dissolve, leaving nothing behind. Ouji yelled at the slime to back off. Elami told Ouji to stop wasting energy. The slime had no brain to respond to insults. Ouji declared only a future husband was allowed to see Ouji unclothed. Elami noted Ouji had completely lost any sense of danger. Ouji and Miku got into a quick argument, Miku telling Ouji to act less annoying, Ouji firing back. Elami yelled at both of them to stop bickering overhead. Void spotted a path and called the group over. Lily confirmed it was fine. The route back to base was already mapped in Lily's head from running. Going back recklessly would drag the slime straight to the others waiting. So Lily had been tracking locations the whole time. Elami called out Lily by a short nickname. Lily spun around with a flat stare, asking not to be called that. In Lily's home country, it was a common name for girls, which was exactly the problem. Elami shrugged and let it go. Lily had already worked out a way to deal with the slimes. The group picked up pace, following Lily deeper into the dungeon. Lily stopped without warning, and the group nearly crashed into each other. Lily warned everyone. A dangerous area was just ahead. Ouji caught on and grinned. Everyone else saw it too. A massive hole in the floor. Something had punched through from below, leaving a drop straight down to the lower level. The group made it through, a bit slower than expected, but they arrived. Lily had only known the general direction, but kept track well enough. Void pointed out the goblin corpses scattered around. The slimes would stop to feed on those and leave the group alone for a while. Elemi and Lily seemed to be getting along. Elemi accepted the dog with good instincts comparison with good humor, asking to be called a migratory bird instead. Then, the slime appeared at the edge of the passage. Right on time. Lily guided the group along the crumbling edge of the hole, warning everyone not to lean too far. The rim was fragile and would give way. Void warned that anyone who fell behind would be left. Ouji threatened to grab Void's foot if Ouji fell. Void told Ouji to stop talking while staring. Elemi asked if Ouji thought Elemi would fall. Lily added a quiet reminder to stay back from the edge. It would collapse under extra weight. Out of nowhere, Ouji turned to Elemi and said it plainly. Ouji liked Elemi. Wanted to get married. Ouji asked if Elemi heard. Elemi stood frozen. Someone asked if that included them too. Ouji laughed and apologized. Another person told the group to stay focused. Ouji pointed out that someone was still holding on to Ouji's sleeve, which meant something. Then the slime appeared around the corner, sliding closer. Elemi called out to Void, who had crouched near the edge of the hole. Void muttered that pulling off what the monster did, punching through the floor, wasn't possible. Then Void grabbed a piece of rubble and hurled it down. The others reacted with shock. That kind of strength wasn't something a student should have. But Void wasn't done. Void roared and sent the slime flying down the hole with a massive strike. The slime was hurled into the depths, hitting the lower level with a crash. The slime splattered below. Void stepped back, calm. Elemi and the others stood completely stunned. Void glanced over and asked if something was wrong. The group stood in silence, completely thrown off by what just happened. The fight wasn't over yet. Lily sensed it first and went rigid. Something was there. The group looked up. Mika demanded to know what Arunka was doing. The group had company. Arunka announced it clearly. They were here. Splash. Something massive was peering down from above through the hole, watching the group from the upper level. The group looked up. Whatever it was, it had been watching them the whole time, from above. Elemi couldn't see into the darkness, but could feel something breathing up there. Something large. The group asked why it wasn't attacking. Lily guessed it had been watching from the start. No one could explain what kind of creature would drop someone down and then just observe. Either way, a monster's intent wasn't something anyone could read. Something landed hard on the 4th floor. The thud echoed through the passage. The group broke into a run immediately. Elemi registered the sound and started moving. Lily called out. Whatever it was had followed them down. The group kept running. Elemi sensed the presence was still far, not actively chasing yet, but close enough to worry about. Void said to pick up the pace. Elemi demanded to be put down. Void had picked Elemi up mid-run to keep the group moving faster. Elemi realized Void had been slowing down to match Elemi's pace the whole time. That fact landed harder than expected. Ouji kept teasing Elemi about the angry expression even while running. Elemi told Ouji to shut up. The group reached the base. Others spotted them and called out. Someone introduced herself properly, Seneca Magus. Lily confirmed it to the others. Seneca asked right away whether the group had found the stairs to the upper levels. Elemi confirmed the monster had appeared. Seneca took it in. Elemi noticed Elemi was being left out of the strategy discussion, too young to be included. There wasn't much to do about it. But watching the group, Void's strength, Lily's detection range, Elemi thought quietly that this team was better than most night squads. The monster ahead was a different problem entirely. Elemi sensed it first and warned the others. Something was here. The group spotted a figure at the end of the passage. This wasn't going as planned. Seneca moved fast, ordering the others to carry the stretcher from the second group, clear the rubble, and retreat to the lower levels. Seneca and one other would buy time. Elemi called out to stop them. Elemi cut in. No need to move the rubble. The 4th team had already found another buried path. That was the way out. Seneca confirmed the 3rd team's path had no stairs up and asked how close the monster was. Orankame said they'd run all over the place. Distance was unclear. But if it decided to close in, it could do so fast. The monster was walking toward them. Seneca noted it seemed to be enjoying itself. Seneca gave orders fast. 1st and 4th teams head to the passage past the stairs and escape. 2nd team carries the injured Ilga. If more monsters appear, both teams hold them off. 5th team guards the rear. The healer Ficus stays protected. 3rd team was told to hold on. Seneca asked if they could manage. Elemi said yes, and would stay behind too. Elemi told Seneca to escape as well. Seneca refused. This was planned from the start. No one else could do it anyway. Anyone visibly scared would only get in the way. Elemi said to calm down and insisted on staying with the 3rd team. Seneca countered. That was an order. Elemi could not let it go. Elemi pointed out that losing anyone ahead would risk complete annihilation. The only ones who could lead properly were Seneca and Ouji. Ouji could take command. The one in charge had that right. Ouji called chivalry useless. The word sounded familiar. Seneca reacted. Those words belonged to Sword Saint Brise. Brise had earned more military merit than anyone, but stayed a mercenary his whole life. The king offered a knighthood and Brise turned it down. No noble background, no interest in titles. A commoner fighter who refused to be bound. The king gave Brise a different title instead, one that let Brise challenge nobles and royalty, disobey superiors, and roam the battlefield on personal judgment alone. The title was Sword Saint. Brise didn't care about the chivalric code. That was exactly why Brise survived long enough to earn it, and probably had swordsmanship beyond anyone else too. Seneca told everyone to move. There was no time. Seneca told Elemi to go. Elemi was 10 years old but acted older. It was strange, and Seneca called it kind of cool. Elemi went quiet for a second, then pushed past the embarrassment. Seneca laid out the final instruction. No one from the third group breaks away until the limit. Keep the monster occupied and follow right after. Elemi agreed. Void told Orincame to go ahead and take Elemi along. Orincame thanked them and moved. Elemi called out a warning. Something was coming from behind. The monster was right behind them. Void turned and clashed with the monster head-on. The others scrambled to the sides. The monster hit back hard. Void took the impact and got thrown, crashing into the wall. Elemi called out. The monster wasn't finished. Elemi moved in, but the blade wasn't cutting through. The monster's body deflected every strike. Ouji called out a warning. Elemi pulled back just in time. The monster stayed grinning. The blade was completely useless against it. Elemi realized. Even damaging just one finger would reduce the attack power enough to matter. That was worth trying. Lily and the others kept moving further down the passage. Elemi pushed in again, driving the blade low and fast. Ouji came in from above. The monster caught the strike and knocked Ouji aside. Lily moved in next and scraped against the monster's body. Elemi called out to Ouji. The monster turned back and grinned. The monster landed a heavy blow and sent Elemi and Lily flying backward together. A desperate strike, but it didn't reach. The monster's strike connected and sent the group skidding across the floor. Elemi hit the ground and looked up. The monster had taken the hit without stopping. The monster's body was hardening. Even targeting the eyes didn't work. The blade slid off. Orincame had jumped back to reduce the impact, but even a graze from that attack carried enough force to do real damage. Elemi spotted Orincame still fighting. Orincame called back, just a scratch. The monster punched through the floor. Elemi and Ouji tried striking at the same time, but it had no effect. The monster shrugged off everything. Seneca noted it plainly. Nothing was working. Then Seneca shifted approach. Seneca pulled back and launched into a technique. Rock trajectory, empty/style. A blade arc sent forward without contact, aimed directly at the monster. The monster dodged. Until now it had let everything hit and relied on hardening. But this one it moved away from. Elemi called out to Ouji to dodge. Void hit the monster with everything, then pulled back and released. It didn't work either. The others called out to Void. Void told everyone to get out and find the stairs up. Seneca said to regroup. If the war princess was up there, instructors might already be searching. They just needed to find the stairs. A different group showed up at the passage entrance and demanded to know why everyone was still there. They'd found stairs leading up, but the iron door was locked tight. The stairs down to the fourth floor had the same iron doors, sealed and only unlocking as the curriculum progressed. The monster was closing in fast. Someone at the door kept banging and screaming for help. Others in the group were falling apart, just wanting to go home, asking if this was really the end. Elemi stood back and quietly said no. It wasn't over. Elemi's gladius was shattered. The backup stiletto wouldn't be enough. Void, Ouji, and Miku were all at their limit. Elemi looked at the hopeless situation and asked what to do. Asked what was even possible. A voice called out to Arami Oltingham. That was not the time to die. Open the eyes. Something clicked. There was one thing left to try. Elemi walked over to Ouji and asked to borrow the sword. Ouji said nothing at first. Elemi pointed out that at this rate, everyone was done for anyway. Ouji handed it over. A katana couldn't be swung the same way as a regular sword, or the blade would break. The technique required placing the blade perpendicular to the surface and pulling through, not even a fraction off. A master could cut through anything, rock or steel. But hitting a moving target at that speed with precision was a completely different matter. Ouji asked if Elemi was serious about this. Elemi confirmed it and said thanks for the advice. Ouji tried to pull Elemi back, told Elemi to rest, that it was a losing gamble. With Void and Ouji both down, Elemi was the only one still able to move. Ouji demanded a promise to come back alive no matter what. Elemi thought of Lily, that same anxious look, that same kind of conversation. Elemi gave the answer. No promises, just a best effort. Elemi lifted the katana. It was long and heavier than expected, but manageable. Most swords on this continent were straight blades built for weight and cutting power. A katana was different, thin, curved, made for slicing technique over raw force. The lighter build meant faster movement and more precision. Ouji's empty/rock cleave only worked with a katana. Even Blaze, who fought formless, would have struggled with this weapon. Elemi wondered if the technique could actually be pulled off. It didn't matter. As long as the monster could be cut down, nothing else did. Elemi stepped forward with no fixed form, just matching the monster's movements, reading what was coming, and stepping in personally. Elemi moved in and struck. Too shallow. The blade grazed the surface but didn't cut through. Elemi kept the monster from reacting, staying close, not giving time to think. A thin line appeared on the monster's surface. Barely a scratch, just the outermost layer of skin. Elemi cut it. Just barely, but it worked. The plan was to keep doing it over and over. The others called out. It was wounded. Elemi pressed forward. The monster struck back hard. Elemi took the hit and staggered, but the others shouted to keep going. The monster tried to push back. It wasn't enough. Void got up and grabbed the monster from behind, buying Elemi a second. Ouji yelled out, asking if Elemi could finish it. Elemi moved. Elemi grabbed the sword again. Everyone was watching. Elemi said it plainly, not alone. Then charged. The monster screamed. Elemi pushed through. Everyone watching yelled to finish it now. The monster took a hit to the face. Blood poured out. Elemi got hit back and was sent flying across the ground. Ouji watched in shock. The monster's wounds started dissolving from inside. Elemi stood back up, covered in damage. Elemi muttered, "Monster." The monster swayed but didn't fall. Elemi needed to save the others. "Keep fighting. Keep fighting." The monster looked at Elemi and managed broken words. "Human." Then more broken words. "You all. Live." The monster grabbed Elemi and threw the body hard across the ground. Ouji called out, "El Tan." The monster's weapon shattered on impact. Elemi hit the floor and didn't get up. Elemi lay on the ground. A memory surfaced, Lily saying she would do the same as the master. Blaze had wanted to be part of a family. The thought came, was this a life-flashing moment? The monster collapsed nearby. Elemi stared up and wondered, was this really it? Elemi lay in the rubble, barely moving. One question floated up slowly. Is reincarnation a miracle that only happens once? Everything clicked. Kilps was Blaze's disciple, and Kilps never wanted to make Lily the next sword saint. No, Lily already was one. Lily moved in and cut clean through the monster's arm. The others watched, stunned. The true and rightful sword saint. That was the final image as Lily stood over the fallen monster, the chapter ending there. Lily stood in the dungeon, sword in hand. The monster was down. Elemi stared and said Lily's name quietly. Lily corrected, not Lily, but instructor Ituka, right? Ouji exhaled and leaned back. Everyone around them was battered but alive. Further down, another group had activated a magic circle. A chuckle broke the silence. At the dungeon entrance, instructor Ituka apologized. The keys for the third-level iron doors were different from the ones at the entrance. Ituka had rushed back to school to get them when the collapse happened. Everyone from class had made it out. Not all unscathed, but alive. Elemi noted that unlike Blaze, who relied on raw strength, Lily had no inherited swordsmanship to fall back on. So being formless, Lily developed something new entirely. That new power was the ideal swordsmanship Elemi had always sought, and it had been passed down. Something deeper than bloodline, carried through Lily Ituka. The fight was over. Lily's legs finally gave out. Elemi's knees weren't much better either. Lily told Elemi that no matter how much Elemi hated it, the same treatment Lily got from the master would now be applied to Elemi. Elemi demanded to know if that included being carried on someone's back, without warning. Lily pointed out Elemi jumped on pretty fast. The group bickered over which was worse, being princess carried in front of everyone or quietly riding piggyback. Elemi went with piggyback. Lily mentioned the technique from earlier came from a book. Nobody bought it. Class 1 got 2 days off after the dungeon incident. Ouji greeted Elemi during the break and asked how Elemi was doing. Elemi said there were no serious injuries. The impact had been redirected by mimicking Ouji's dodge. Others asked if the eye had really been ruptured. Elemi confirmed it was fine now. Ouji called Elemi a stray dog. Elemi fired back with alley cat. Void sat nearby drinking something that looked like pond water. It was matcha. Ouji asked about the dodge technique Elemi used. Lily explained it was the basic Kushin single strike parrying method, redirecting with the body instead of the blade, common among smaller fighters. Blaze would have just pushed through by force. Ouji admitted the rock cleave only worked because Void had stopped the monster's movement first. Hitting a moving target like that wasn't something Elemi could do alone. Ouji still called it impressive. Lily had told Ouji the details. Getting praised by a swordsman from another school felt different from the hollow praise of the knights here. Ilga was recovering in the next bed over. The health instructor had cast healing magic through the night. The group asked if Lily had figured out what the monster was. Lily confirmed it. A homunculus, an artificial human grown not in a womb, but in a flask. Elemi and the others reacted with disbelief. Lily said it already existed in the Egel Republic, even if it hadn't reached this kingdom yet. Mika's father, Count Mardo Ornheim, governed a border city facing the Republic, so Mika knew more about frontline developments than anyone in the capital. That explained where the information came from. Void started getting worked up. Elemi told Void to cool it. Lily added that instructors with military ties had probably already suspected something. In just 10 years since reincarnation, monsters like that had appeared. If they were ever mass-produced, the kingdom wouldn't last. Ouji suggested getting married right after graduation and asked Elemi along. Elemi said that future didn't exist. Void left early. Elemi turned and quietly thanked Void. Without Void, the outcome would have been much worse. Elemi admitted it plainly, then went quiet. Ouji pointed out Elemi had forgotten to say thanks earlier and called Elemi embarrassingly shy. Elemi told Ouji to shut up. Lily watched and noted Elemi wasn't being honest, but was clearly grateful. Ouji brought up that everyone survived because of Elemi. Ouji said thanks too, though loudly enough to annoy everyone. Lily arrived and joined them. Elemi called Lily over and pointed out eating alone wasn't fun. Lily hesitated, thinking it would be rude to interrupt. The memory surfaced. Back on the battlefield, Lily had sat at the edge of the fire, unsure of where to belong. That was the night the group took Lily in. Lily smiled and sat down. Elemi slid over and told Lily plainly, from now on, Elemi would keep doing the same thing Lily's master had done for Lily. Lily looked surprised. The others watched. Lily caught on. That way of talking, that exact attitude. Trying to get back at Lily, right? Lily laughed and called it obvious, since it was what Lily had been doing to Elemi the whole time. Elemi told Lily the moment was ruined. Lily confirmed it was instructor Ituka who ruined it. Day 2 of the break. Elemi reached up from the bed. No strength at all. Lily was already there. telling Elemi not to overtrain in a rush. At Elemi's age, overtraining stunts growth. Better to hone technique. Swinging a sword builds the necessary strength naturally. Arm and leg length matter in swordsmanship. Lily told Elemi the same things Elemi had told 10-year-old Lily in the past life. Elemi realized, to the adult Lily, Elemi now looked exactly like young Lily once did to Blaze. Being treated like a kid was frustrating. Lily offered to act as a parent figure. Elemi said absolutely not and told Lily to stop. Lily said to rest up and left. Lily leaned in and asked if Elemi was like that back then, still wanting to be pampered at this age. Elemi denied it. Lily admitted yes, Lily had wanted that too. But by an Elimia who wasn't even born yet. How could that have happened? Lily laughed it off as a joke. Elemi sat there completely flustered. Lily joked that at this rate, marriage was probably off the table. Living together would work fine though. Someone pointed out that if Elimia had nowhere to belong, that might not be so bad. Void said he wasn't the type to start a family anyway, so kids or no kids didn't matter. Elimia groaned and cursed Brise under his breath for passing down such useless ideas. Elimia headed to the near-empty cafeteria before class, figuring lying around all day would make the body sluggish. Void noticed the place felt like a hassle. Then a voice called out, someone needed Elimia's help. A group of older girls came charging over, excited to see El-chan, asking to hang out after school and telling Elimia how much Elimia looked like a girl. Elimia begged Ouji to do something. Ouji snapped back that Elimia should handle it. They hit a dead end. The girls cornered them both, demanding to know about the Kushin single strike style and gushing about how Ouji protected everyone. Elimia desperately called out for Void to step in. The girls screamed when Void showed up, chanting his name like a title. One confessed and asked Void out on the spot. Void told her to scram, no interest in bratty little girls. Elimia winced, thinking that kind of rejection was a bit harsh. Void swept the girls aside in one motion. The girls swooned anyway. The girls lost it completely, hearts in their eyes, completely starstruck. Elimia and Ouji stood frozen, bewildered. The girls snapped back to reality when they realized class was starting and rushed off, waving goodbye to Elimia, Ouji, and Void. Ms. Ornheim noted that despite everything that went down in the dungeon, things still felt normal. Ouji looked back on everything, the sword techniques, meeting Lily, the reliable group around him. The days at Reincarnated Academy had been good ones. Elimia and Void stood nearby. Ouji was glad he came. Somewhere else, a figure moved quietly in the shadows. A knight arrived to escort someone. The escorted figure addressed the knight formally, then turned. It was the king. The caption noted it, a sudden royal deployment. The king was heading to Reincarnated Academy and looked forward to it. Instructor Ituka stopped Elimia just before first period. Elimia had no idea what was going on. Ituka said first period was being made into self-study due to an urgent matter. Void and Ouji showed up too. They'd all been called. Void grumbled about missing a rooftop nap. Ouji greeted Elimia cheerfully. Void refused to take class seriously and said his brain was on a different level anyway. That set off a rivalry. The two agreed to settle things on the next test. Winner gets to decide what to do with El-tan. Elimia panicked. A knock came at the door. Ouji guessed it was about the homunculus incident again. It was instructor Lily Ituka. Ituka told the chairman that Class 1, Group 3 had arrived. The chairman turned with a smile and said good work. Elimia caught the name, General Ituka, and froze for a moment. The chairman and Elimia locked eyes. Both reacted at the same time, one calling out son, the other calling out father. The rest of the group watched the exchange, completely caught off guard. King Kilpis was in the room. Everyone stared in shock. The king laughed it off. Here at the school, he was just an instructor, not a general. Ituka corrected the title calmly. The king had come personally after hearing that students who fought a homunculus were at Reincarnated Academy. He never expected his own son to be among them. Ituka introduced the group as the 4 members of Class 1, Group 3 who faced the homunculus from Egel Republic. The king stared hard. Elimia hissed at the king to stop staring before the cover got blown. Miku Ornheim stepped forward first and greeted King Oldingham formally. The king recognized Miku right away and asked about Miku's father, Lord Ornheim. Miku said Father Mardo was over 70 but couldn't stay still, hunting mountain beasts every day since the ceasefire. Miku added it would be nice if Mardo slowed down. The king laughed and said making family worry wasn't good. He said that while looking directly at Void. Void told the king not to aim that comment at him. The king called Ornheim a legendary figure, the man who fought alongside Sword Saint Brise and would never do anything suspicious. Next was Ryoka Ouji, an exchange student from the Eastern nations. Ouji said he crossed the seas to learn the sword techniques of the kingdom's hero, Brise. The king said Guria hoped to build ties with the Eastern nations someday, and told Ouji to learn as much as possible. Bringing back Brise's legacy could open a path. Ouji thanked the king, flustered. Then Void Scale was introduced, from the slums of Elva's port city. The king said Void was exempt from tuition due to outstanding grades. Everyone reacted with surprise. King Kilpis admitted it was genuinely unexpected to find Void here as the chairman. Void grumbled. The girls in the background were still muttering about the test bed and what the winner would get to do with El-tan. Elimia was slowly panicking. Elva had the sharpest wealth gap in all of Guria. Nobles took over the coast for tourism and profit, pushing commoners into inland slums. The noble-led tourism guild was too powerful for King Kilpis to take on directly, and the war had drained resources. Kilpis apologized and promised to change Elva bit by bit. Void told the king not to dodge with vague promises. Nobody in the slums expected anything anyway. The king said Void could have let out more anger, but instead Void stayed measured. Void shrugged it off. The king said to know one thing. He hadn't given up and wouldn't let Void down again. Void said sure, whatever. Last introduction, Elimia Noi, who skipped primary and middle school on academic merit and entered the high school division at just 10 years old. Elimia also cut off the homunculus's arm. King Kilpis shook Elimia's hand awkwardly. Elimia fumbled through the greeting. The king said that talent was impressive, but Elimia was still only 10, and the mother must be worried sick. Elimia snapped to attention. King Kilpis praised instructor Ituka. Ituka corrected the title, retired from the military, just an instructor now. Kilpis asked everyone to sit and tell the full story of what happened in the dungeon. Ouji agreed to begin. King Kilpis admitted the meeting went better than expected. As the group left the room, Kilpis called out to Miku. Miku turned and asked what was needed. Kilpis said there was one thing he forgot to ask. The room went tense. Everyone froze. Kilpis stared at the group with a sharp look. The question hung in the air. Who exactly were they? Void's expression shifted. Ituka looked over. Elimia had no idea what was happening. Void quietly asked what Kilpis meant by that. Ituka moved without warning. A slash cut through the room. Elimia and Ouji barely reacted in time. The attack was fast and precise. Everyone scrambled. Miku and Ituka clashed, kicks and counters flying back and forth across the room. Ituka held firm. Miku landed and stopped, then said sorry. Miku refused to let Ituka pin the situation down and fought back hard. Kilpis watched from a distance, unsurprised. Ituka cut off Miku's escape route. Elimia called out for everyone to wait. Miku took a hit and went down. Elimia called out. Miku lay on the ground, unmoving. Elimia stared in shock. Ituka ordered Void to protect Kilpis, then told Ouji and Elimia to back Void up. Ituka jumped out to pursue Miku. Elimia watched and thought, Miku just tried to kill Kilpis. Ouji asked Elimia why Elimia called Kilpis father. Elimia panicked. Void stepped in and told Elimia to calm down. Ouji and Void were both there. Elimia realized the truth had slipped out. Elimia had blown the cover. Void stated it plainly. Elimia Noi was the kingdom's third prince. Ouji grabbed Elimia and demanded an explanation. Elimia looked stunned. Void confirmed it. The full name came out. Elimia Oldingham. Ouji was floored. Elimia demanded to know how Void knew. Void said yeah. A mercenary hired directly by Elimia's father, assigned to protect Elimia. Elimia barely processed it. Void casually added, a paladin? Elimia stared at Void. The chapter ended with secrets piling up fast. Elimia and Ouji both reacted to the paladin reveal. Void told Elimia to calm down, and said the hired hunter part was still true. Void asked what about him looked like a knight. Void said there was no intent to deceive. Some things were kept quiet, but nothing was a lie. Being from Elva's slums was real. Void also warned Elimia to be careful of Ornheim. On the first day, Void suspected Miku had noticed Elimia's identity and approached on purpose, so Void stayed on guard. But during the homunculus attack in the dungeon, Miku risked her life to protect Elimia. Void admitted that lowered the suspicion. Void said the job was just to protect Elimia. Assassination, espionage, or sabotage was Ituka's and Kilpis's problem. Void stopped the attempt on Kilpis because letting a client's parent die meant no reward. Then added, as a bonus, that a kid watching a parent die leaves a wound that doesn't go away. Elimia went quiet. Void's real reason and the excuse were clearly the other way around. Kilpis noted that much. Void also mentioned that right after dropping guard toward Miku, a message arrived from Kilpis. King Kilpis then said the other day, they secured the real Miku Ornheim. The girl at the academy was not Miku Ornheim. Elimia went blank. The real Miku Ornheim. Then who was the one at school, all along? Void panicked when the news came in. The real Miku Ornheim had been kidnapped, then rescued by the Border Knight Order, and the truth came out. The woman who risked her life to save Elimia in the dungeon turned out to be a criminal. Kilpis had rushed over personally out of concern for Elimia, though the visit also served official duties. Void admitted the reward nearly went up in smoke. Kilpis told Void to be more careful. Since Void hadn't known about Kilpis's visit, the assassination attempt couldn't have been planned in advance. The fake Miku panicked when her identity was exposed and went for Kilpis on impulse. Lily moved immediately to stop her without even being told the situation. Kilpis noted Lily's talent rivaled Brise. Elimia asked if Lily also knew the identity. Kilpis said no. Fewer people knowing was better, and Kilpis trusted Lily would act correctly regardless. Kilpis told Elimia that at the school, the only ones who knew the true identity were Void and Ouji, who just found out. Because the status stayed hidden, the fake Miku never targeted Elimia directly. It was lucky. Kilpis confirmed. The woman at the school was not Miku Ornheim. Ouji couldn't believe it. The fake had attacked the carriage when the real Miku Ornheim was heading to the night school entrance exam. The fake replaced Miku and slipped in as a spy. Abnormal speed. Presence that even the sword saint couldn't detect. Elimia stared at the hooded figure. An assassin. There were clues all along. Void and Ituka noticed something was off, but convinced themselves students like that existed. Elimia didn't want to believe it. The memories of being close, the warmth, the bond, made it impossible to accept. The kidnapping was discovered by Lord Ornheim's Night Order while patrolling the border. Among the captives was the real Miku Ornheim, who should have been on the way to the entrance exam. If that incident hadn't come to light, the fake would have kept causing damage to the kingdom from inside. Kilpis laid out what was at stake: his death, Elemia's capture, or wide-scale sabotage. Elemia told Kilpis not to soften the words. The fake might also be the one who released the homunculi into the city and into the dungeon. Kilpis noted the fake knew about the dungeon curriculum in advance. Void called the whole thing a mess. Elemia asked if that was really certain. Ouji pushed back. The homunculus was actively trying to kill the fake during the dungeon incident. The killing intent was real. Ouji had been saved by the fake, so the danger was unmistakable. Kilpis said maybe, but not to be optimistic. Assume the worst. Kilpis reasoned through the motive. Releasing the homunculus was likely to test it as a weapon or prove its effectiveness. Killing Elemia as a noble made little sense. If the target was assassination, it would be Kilpis or the eldest brother Leonard. Void smirked and said Elemia was finally thinking like someone in this world. The fake had plenty of chances to act against Elemia, but never did, meaning the fake probably didn't know Elemia was the prince. Elemia got caught up in student life and forgot the battlefield mindset. Kilpis muttered that it was foolish. Elemia's young body made even the thinking go soft. Elemia knew that, but still couldn't fully cut off what was felt toward the fake. Elemia winced at the thought. That day, Lily couldn't track the fake down. A day passed since the disappearance. Elemia went to Kilpis with a request. Elemia asked Kilpis to hand over custody of the fake. The fake had aimed for the king. Getting caught meant execution. Lily was currently tied up guarding Kilpis until escort knights arrived. The only ones pursuing were city paladins. Elemia said, just today and tomorrow while Kilpis was still at the school. Elemia didn't want the fake to die. Elemia didn't know what to do after finding the fake. Let the fake escape? What then? Elemia had no answer, just one clear feeling. The fake had to live. Kilpis asked if Elemia understood what was being asked. This wasn't something a child's feelings could justify. Kilpis asked what a 10-year-old could actually take responsibility for. Elemia said that if necessary, Elemia would cut the fake down personally. But first, Elemia wanted to talk. Kilpis refused. Protecting one person meant endangering millions. Elemia called out to Kilpis directly and begged. Elemia understood the logic. The Republic was watching for any sign of weakness. If it got out that the king was targeted, the kingdom would be exposed. Elemia couldn't do anything else, so Elemia begged. Just give the fake a chance to live. Kilpis sighed and called Elemia foolish. Kilpis flicked Elemia on the forehead. A knock came at the door, someone asking about the noise. Kilpis covered it by saying a vase got knocked off during a heated discussion with Noikun. The guard accepted the answer and left. Kilpis told Elemia to think. Kilpis explained. His presence at Rein was a state secret. Officially, Kilpis was not in the city. That meant the fake's crime was not the assassination of the king. Only Kilpis, Lily, and Class 1, Group 3 knew the truth. The knights chasing the fake didn't even fully understand why. Elemia's eyes went wide. Kilpis said to find the fake before the Night Order did, or before Void or Ituka did. If Kilpis found the fake, she might reveal things that couldn't stay secret. That window was today only. Elemia tried to call out to Kilpis by name. Kilpis noted Elemia had changed, and pointed out that no son calls a father by name. Elemia apologized. Kilpis said to stay as Elemia was. Kilpis said talking with Elemia reminded him of Brise, strong but with no cunning. Kilpis warned that royalty, who were too honest, got eaten by politics. For those who stand above, cunning was essential. Elemia took that in and ran. Kilpis called out to hurry. Elemia ran through the rain. The fake couldn't use inns or shared transport. The knights had those covered. Moving as a group would have been spotted already, so the fake was likely alone. Elemia stopped, a place sheltered from rain, hard to spot. Then Elemia remembered something. Elemia reached the Rein dungeon entrance and called out. Elemia didn't even know the real name. Elemia called out anyway. Alone, no threat, just wanting to talk. No response. The dungeon was empty. Elemia started to give up, then heard a sound and spun around. The fake stood right there, armed. Elemia froze. A quiet voice called out, El-Tan. Elemia's hand went toward a weapon, but stopped. Drawing it would end everything. The fake said the real name, Riona Belsheim. That was what the fake had always been called. Elemia lowered the weapon and told Riona not to startle like that. The warmth from before hadn't changed at all. Riona held Elemia and said that was the name she went by. Elemia asked if it was really the real name. Riona laughed and said probably. She used so many names she wasn't fully sure. Riona said it wasn't that she lost memories. She just had so many names that she couldn't be confident which one was truly hers. Elemia asked what that meant. Riona noticed Elemia was soaking wet and pulled Elemia over to dry off before talking more. Riona moved easily through the dark dungeon without hesitation, an assassin's instinct. Elemia was glad to see Riona safe, but tried to stay careful. Elemia admitted there was no way to know if Riona knew the royal identity. Riona offered to remove the weapon belt. Elemia panicked. Without it, Elemia would be completely defenseless. Riona offered to help change out of the wet clothes too. Elemia refused loudly. Riona laughed and said it was too dark to see anything. Elemia snapped that seeing wasn't the issue. Riona lit an oil lamp, a personal item brought from the Republic. Elemia noted how old-fashioned it was. Riona said she didn't buy it. It was something brought from the Republic. Elemia went quiet. The lamp cast light in the dark dungeon. Elemia just said yeah, alright. It felt depressing. Riona apologized for the cold. Elimia said there was no need. It wasn't Riona's dungeon. Elimia mentioned a fire would be nice, but the rain made it impossible, and goblins would come anyway. Riona looked surprised and said Elimia talked like an experienced old man. Elimia admitted to hiding in mountains many times before, surviving on night, dew, and weeds. It was rough. The night of the day Elimia returned alive. Riona suddenly burst into tears, calling out a name, Brise, and hugging Elimia tight. Elimia winced at the grip. Riona said through sobs how glad Elimia was safe. Elimia laughed quietly. Riona asked why Elimia was laughing. Elimia said it was just, being alive was a good thing. Riona pushed food at Elimia, saying it would warm the body up. Elimia hesitated. Riona said not to worry about poison. That wasn't a skill of Riona's. Elimia said the suspicion wasn't there. Riona thanked Elimia. Elimia asked why. Riona said it was because Elimia still trusted. The food was good. Riona pushed for more enthusiasm. Elimia said normally regular food was fine. This was field ration stuff. Riona asked to sit next to Elimia. Elimia said to do as Riona liked. Riona mentioned Elimia seemed wary. Elimia said if that were true, getting undressed in front of an assassin wouldn't have happened. Riona admitted, almost killing Elimia at the dungeon entrance. Elimia's shout was the only reason Riona stopped. Elimia had no idea how to respond to that. Riona suggested marriage out of nowhere. Elimia said that was too big a leap. Riona pulled Elimia into a hug anyway. Riona apologized. For everything. Elimia asked what the real reason for infiltrating Reincarnated Academy was. Was it to kill King Oldingham? Riona said no. That was unexpected. The king disguised as headmaster was something Riona never anticipated. Elimia asked what the actual goal was then. The target was War Princess Lilia Tuka. Elimia froze. Riona explained. Lily had dealt damage to the Republic's army on a level comparable to Brise. Lily was young enough to potentially return to active military service, and as an undefeated war figure, Lily was a massive source of morale for the kingdom. The Republic wanted to break that. Elimia said bluntly, Riona couldn't kill Lily. As a former sword saint, even weakened, Elimia was on Lily's side and would stop it. Riona agreed. Lily and Riona both had a kind of sixth sense that went beyond normal perception. Lily had noticed Riona's stare during the entrance exam. Even a bow attack from outside range would likely be detected. On top of that, Elimia was apparently living with Lily, which complicated things further. Riona wondered. The secret Riona had been holding over Elimia wasn't the royal identity at all. The intel said the war princess had no family, and the different looks made parent-child or sibling impossible. The secret was just that. Elimia reacted loud and hard. That was the big secret? Elimia told Riona that should have been said sooner. Riona laughed and said telling would have revealed it wasn't much of a secret. Elimia told Riona point blank to quit, both assassination and espionage. Riona was terrible at it. Elimia pointed out Riona could have used Elimia as a hostage to get to the king, but never did. Riona went quiet. Tears started falling from Elimia's eyes. Elimia tried to hold it together and said just one thing, stay alive. Riona looked startled. Elimia called Riona an idiot and pulled Riona in close. Riona said she only knew this way of living. Elimia said there was plenty of time. Riona should tell everything about the past. A small figure from Riona's past appeared in the dark, a child alone, covered in wounds. The chapter ended there. Riona Belsheim was born in a rural area of the Egel Republic, in a region called Westwill, where farming and livestock were the main livelihood. The long war between the Republic and the kingdom began tilting toward the kingdom's victory because of the Sword Saint. The kingdom took several territories from the Republic. Young King Kilpis Oldingham proposed a truce to Republic President Regulus Nezeb on the condition of returning the seized territories. Nezeb accepted, and the ceasefire negotiations appeared settled. But that same year, something abnormal happened in Westwill. A disease broke out suddenly in Westwill. All residents, including the Belsheim family, died. The Republic's military investigated and found a poison in the water source with no production records in the Republic. Nezeb accused the kingdom of sabotage. Kilpis denied it, but after returning the seized territories, Nezeb broke the truce anyway. The war dragged on again. The Sword Saint died in battle. The ceasefire didn't come until Lily's achievements years later. Even after the truce, the Westwill incident still smoldered between the two countries. Elimia asked if Riona was a survivor of Belsheim. According to official records, no one survived. Kilpis wasn't the type to poison a civilian land. It was likely Nezeb of the Republic who did it to break the truce. Riona said she didn't really know the truth. She was just a newborn and remembered nothing. Elimia noticed something. Riona grew up without parents and had that strange way of closing distance with people as a result. Riona said the Republic raised and protected her as a supposed Belsheim survivor and told her Kilpis was responsible for killing the family. That was the brainwashing that pushed Riona into assassin training and the infiltration mission. But Riona said hatred of Kilpis wasn't really the driving force. As a baby, she remembered nothing. Even whether she was truly a Belsheim wasn't certain. Elimia asked why Riona lived that life then. Riona said it was the only way she knew, until coming to the school. Elimia asked one more thing. Was it Riona who released the homunculus? Riona said no, that was another agent. The goal was still Lily's assassination either way. Riona also figured out from that incident that the Republic considered Riona a disposable pawn all along. The homunculus had no discrimination. Riona could have been killed too. Elimia said that was what was suspected. The original purpose was likely to pit the homunculus against Lily, or to test its power. But the group whittled it down first, so no useful data came of it. Riona noted the whole thing was sickening. Then Riona mentioned, the homunculus itself was a little pitiful. It said humans were hateful. Riona thought the homunculus was probably raised the same way Riona was, born and immediately conditioned through force, with killing beaten in from the start. Elimia asked what that meant. Riona said the same thing happened to Riona, raised in a facility full of children just like her. From the moment language was learned, killing and espionage were also beaten in. Failure meant no food. Children who cried were punished worse. The facility was silent. Everyone learned to stay close to themselves. Adults were terrifying. Riona stabbed targets without hesitation because hesitating meant being hit. Adults were scary. Over time, missions came, killing many people. Children who hesitated or failed were killed instead. 3 years in, less than half the original group remained. Riona stopped talking to anyone because forming bonds just meant watching them disappear. Eventually, only 3 children were left, and Riona was the only girl. Riona started getting called out at night for other things. Staying silent made it end faster. Adults were still scary, even now. Elimia snapped and told Riona to stop talking. Riona froze. Elimia pulled Riona into a tight hold and stayed there. Riona went still, then quietly said Elimia's name. Riona said the fear wasn't because Elimia was small. Riona laughed softly and said being held like this made the whole thing feel real and felt happy. Elimia told Riona to stop talking for now. Riona said all right and went quiet, good at silence. Elimia sat with the weight of it. In a previous life, a country like that should have been torn down. The choices Kilpis and Brise made shaped this world, and this world produced Riona. Elimia didn't know what the right answer was, or what anyone could have done differently. Riona asked if Elimia was crying again. Elimia denied it loudly. Riona said the world around Riona was always abnormal, because Riona was the only normal one in it. Riona ended up becoming strange instead. The world was cruel. Riona said she was a wanted person in the kingdom and couldn't go back to the Republic. The mission failed, and as a disposable pawn, returning meant death. But Riona didn't want to die either. Elimia called Riona's name and asked if Riona trusted Elimia. Riona said okay. Elimia said to entrust the life to Elimia. Riona agreed right away, surprising Elimia who had expected pushback. Elimia explained the plan, return to school, and go to Kilpis. Riona asked if that meant being killed. Elimia said no. As a prince, Elimia could give Kilpis an opinion. Kilpis was soft-hearted enough to be persuaded with a proper appeal. Riona laughed and said Elimia looked like royalty on the outside, but felt nothing like it on the inside. The rain helped. Returning to school without being spotted by knights was possible. But the problem was Lily. Elimia said if the situation was explained, Lily would understand. Elimia started to speak just as Lily came around the corner. Lily moved instantly. No words, just a strike. Lily told Elimia to get out of the way. Elimia tried to explain, but Lily kept attacking. Riona told Elimia to duck. Elimia got caught between both of them, taking hits from the clash. Lily fully intended to kill Riona. Elimia strained to hold the blade back. Elimia called out to Riona not to draw. Drawing would make everything pointless. Riona had said she would trust Elimia. Lily calls out Elami's name and grabs onto him. Nearby, another fighter clashes violently with an opponent down the corridor. Elami's sword arm gets caught as the two collide mid-strike, sparks flying on impact. The attacker gets knocked back from the force, but Elami loses his footing too. Lily tells Elami to get out of the way. The path connects to millions of lives, and she can't let the king die. Elami calls her stubborn. Lily flashes back to a past moment when someone did the same thing, ignored her orders, and followed her into battle anyway. She punished that person harshly. Now, she levels her weapon and warns that fools who don't listen get punished. Lily stumbles and nearly falls, caught off guard. Elami moves but doesn't attack. Lily shouts at him to stop dodging and just fight back. Elami stays calm and out of reach while Lily scrambles to keep up. The enemy roars and lunges at Elami. Lily throws a full force strike at Elami and lands a hit. Elami goes wide-eyed. Nearby, Bree watches with a stunned look. Lily gloats that the hit landed. Elami takes the blow and goes still. A staff member steps in from the doorway and remarks that things seemed lively. Elami apologizes quietly, looking dazed. Lily wonders what she's even doing. Elami raises both hands and apologizes. Lily orders the king to step back, then readies her stance. The staff member smiles. Elami explains that Kilpis gave permission, that leaking mission details raises the failure rate, and that Kilpis should have told Lily sooner. Lily rounds on Kilpis. Lily gets scolded to address Elami properly as His Majesty. Kilpis gets told to go by Instructor Ituka. Lily winces. Then Lily turns with a sharp look and warns Elami. Just wait until tonight. Elami shrinks and shuffles away quietly, dreading the earful waiting back at the room. Elami thinks it over. At that price, saving one more person, an unfortunate girl the world never loved, is worth it. If Elami can do that, the deal is cheap. Elami decides not to regret the choice. Lily watches Elami's back from behind, reaching out slightly. Elami is right there, yet feels impossibly far away. Title page, final chapter. Elami thanks Kilpis for the chance to save Riona. Kilpis corrects the slip and reminds Elami to use the proper title. Kilpis then tells Riona to share everything, including the details about the facility. Riona agrees. Elemi finishes recounting what happened. Elemi adds that Lily is probably listening from the other side of the door right now. Kilpis goes quiet. Kilpis thinks that Elemi and Brise could have crushed the Republic's system, but that would have made the Republic's people suffer, so that path was never an option. Kilpis had ruled it out, and trusted that Elemi would reach the same conclusion. Kilpis states that from the start, there was no way to save Riona cleanly. Riona was already abandoned by the Republic and likely given no useful information. Kilpis admits that using Riona as diplomatic leverage is on the table, not because of Riona's worth, but because the Egel Republic sent an assassin after Gallia's war princess, and that fact can be used. Kilpis explains that the real Miss Ornheim was successfully rescued, making that a clear weakness for the Republic. Elemi pushes back and tells Kilpis that royalty without cunning isn't really royalty. Kilpis said so. Kilpis acknowledges Elemi's anger but holds the position. Elemi kneels and asks Kilpis to give Riona a chance to live. Kilpis asks if Elemi is dating Riona. Elemi and Lily both freeze. Lily stares blankly. Elemi spins around and demands to know what Kilpis is saying. Kilpis calmly confirms it. Elemi shouts in disbelief. Kilpis says it was a joke and looks to Riona to confirm. Elemi tells Kilpis not to say it seriously. Kilpis admits this is beyond expectations. Elemi turned out smarter than anticipated. Riona says plainly that Riona genuinely likes Elemi. Elemi freezes. Riona says Elemi should read the room and stop joking around. Elemi fires back that Elemi won't stay small forever and plans to grow up into someone Riona won't be able to handle. Riona admits Elemi turned out way cooler than expected, started approaching Elemi because of type and strength, but it became something more. Riona is serious. Riona says that if the two can grow together little by little, Riona doesn't think growing up will feel scary anymore. Elemi goes quiet, caught off guard by the sincerity. Riona explains that being chased or desired usually triggers fear tied to the past, but Elemi never demands anything. That's what makes it different. Elemi grumbles, annoyed. Riona also mentions not wanting to think about starting a family yet. Elemi shoots back that Elemi feels the same. Riona declares them mutual and confesses directly. Elemi panics internally, wonders if keeping distance actually had the opposite effect, then spirals trying to figure out what to say next. Elemi turns to Professor Void in full panic, asking what to do. Void asks if the conversation is done. Riona says it probably won't go anywhere either way, so whatever, and confirms they're dating. Kilpis remarks that facing the war princess took serious resolve and says it's no wonder Elemi fought so hard to save Riona. Kilpis smiles and says it's good to see young people grow. Kilpis pauses and states the fact that Riona targeted the king's life cannot simply be erased. Elemi tenses. Kilpis adds that royalty Elemi mentioned must be cunning and shrewd, and that means only one thing needs to happen. The facts get erased. Elemi underestimated Kilpis. Kilpis issues a gag order to General Scale, Ouji, and Ituka. Not even Class 1 students know the truth about Riona Belsheim. The headmaster, being the king, is also classified. Knights searching the Academy City operated under the cover of tracking a minor crime suspect. The charges against Riona can be reframed: theft of school equipment, disappearing without permission, easily explained away. Kilpis explains the plan. As long as certain people stay quiet, General Mardo Ornheim at the border won't know who impersonated Miss Miku. The kidnapping group is already captured, and Riona returned the school equipment. Kilpis concludes it all looks like a school misunderstanding. Elemi takes it in quietly. Elemi realizes Kilpis doesn't just look at power or status. Kilpis looks at people. Because of that, Elemi was always able to fight at full strength. Elemi calls Kilpis the greatest king. However, Kilpis states personally having no intention of forgiving the one who tried to take the king's life. Elemi goes still. Kilpis orders Elemi to serve as Riona's observer for as long as Riona lives in the country. Elemi protests that treating Riona like a criminal is too much. Kilpis waves it off. Elemi and Riona are dating anyway, and Kilpis knows Elemi's father, Baranoi, well enough to trust he'd accept Riona too. Kilpis tells Elemi to just stay close and keep watch. Elemi mutters that Kilpis is the worst old man around. Then, the scene cuts to night. Elemi is seated, getting a full lecture from Lily. Lily lists every offense: meeting secretly with the king without telling Lily, going out alone to find Riona, putting the king at risk, and hitting Lily. Elemi takes it all quietly. Elemi promises to consult Lily more going forward, but asks Lily to stop treating Elemi like a child. Lily agrees they should both be more careful from now on. Riona's bed arrives tomorrow, so Elemi points out Riona will finally sleep properly. Riona says it's too late, already used to the cramped space. Elemi asks if Riona gets lonely and wants to sleep close. Riona says sleeping next to someone with a big frame as a child left the habit of curling up. Elemi says Riona is cute. Riona tells Elemi to stop. Elemi reaches over quietly. Riona lies still. Elemi calls out Riona's name, Brise. Elemi asks if Riona's hand can be held while sleeping. Riona tells Elemi to just take it whenever, no need to ask each time. Elemi smiles. Riona looks over and asks if Elemi is feeling lonely. Elemi admits maybe a little. Riona asks if Elemi has ever grown attached to a stray picked up off the street. Elemi denies being Brise's secret child. Riona laughs and says being near Elemi brings back the past, but maybe it's just because Elemi is Elemi. Riona calls Elemi adorable, just a little. Elemi thinks back. Around the time the Sword Saint title was earned, Money had been saved up and Lily had become a capable fighter. Even so, Lily never left, and Elemi never pushed Lily out. Elemi wonders if that's what family means. The scene shifts. Past Lily asks what happened to Brise. Brise rushed to help civilians caught in the war and got ambushed. With that much blood loss, survival looked unlikely. Someone insists Brise won't go down that easily. The sword saint taken out like this is ridiculous. Young Lily breaks down crying, begging Brise not to leave. Lily asks why Brise picked Lily up that day. If Brise was just going to disappear like this, it would have been better to be left behind. Lily cries that knowing Brise's warmth only makes losing it worse. Brise's voice comes through faint and broken, trying to say don't worry. Brise tells Lily that no matter where Brise ends up, Lily will be found. As many times as it takes. Brise says it clearly, Lily will be found. Elemi wakes up quietly, saying Lily's name. Elemi lies there, tears running down without a sound. Elemi grips Riona's hand tighter in sleep. Riona doesn't pull away. Both fall quiet. Morning comes. Riona hesitates at the door, nervous about facing others. Elemi says no one knows what happened. Only Void and Ouji, and even they weren't given the full details, just that the danger is over. Ouji appears and greets them both. Ouji hands over bread and tells Riona to come out. Got one for Riona too. Elemi thanks Ouji and says the money will be paid back. Ouji waves it off, mentioning a good amount was already squeezed out of the king as hush money plus reward. Elemi spots Riona hesitating nearby and calls out, "Stray cat, come on." Riona apologizes quietly. Elemi asks what for. Riona says not getting in the way of the job is enough, and Elemi is sorry for suspecting Riona without reason. The bread was the apology. Ouji explains his actual job, guarding Elemi. Ouji reveals being hired by Baron Noi to watch over Elemi, since both would be at the same school. Elemi panics. Worried Ouji is about to tell Riona about the royalty situation. Ouji waves it off. Riona's circumstances don't matter, so stop worrying. Riona asks quietly if Ouji is not angry. Riona starts a long explanation about gratitude. Ouji cuts it short and says to keep it simple. Riona admits it plainly. Elemi saved Riona's life once. Riona also says no part will be taken in harming the king, and any trouble Riona faces, Elemi and Ouji can be relied on too. Ouji confirms they already know Riona isn't the real Miku Ornium, and the real Miku is safe. Ouji tells Riona to start from the beginning and give a real name. Riona pauses, then begins. The delivered bed turns out to be a baby bed. Elemi stares at it in disbelief. The furniture worker apologizes and explains the staff assumed Lily had retired from the military for marriage or pregnancy. Elemi says it's fine, just add a small closet instead, and the store covers the costs. Elemi confirms the change with Lily, cancel the bed, order a closet. Lily agrees if Elemi is okay with it. The furniture worker asks about the two of them, noting they seem unusually close for a teacher and student. Lily and Elemi both go quiet. The worker quickly backtracks and promises not to say anything about the war princess's personal life. Elemi tells the worker not to get any strange ideas. The worker leaves. Elemi turns to Lily and says Lily must already know the answer. Elemi says it plainly, no blood ties, no formal label for the relationship, but that's exactly why the two of them are together. What it should have always been. Family. Brise and Lily stand side by side, the sword saint and the war princess. Their hands are shown close together. End.